Chapter 855. The sect master was speechless, but he knew that Madame Yun was not speaking out of anger. She could really do it. Shielding one's own shortcomings was not something that only Blue Blood sect could do. Several decades ago, Yun Xuechu's name had spread throughout the 9 provinces, and it was unknown how many top sects had tried to win her over, but they had all been rejected by her. Now, although she did not belong to any sect, the connections she had accumulated over the years were unimaginable. If she was angry, even Pangjin would have to think twice. When the Dragon Emperor is repaired, you can go to Grand Sky City. Since you're a member of the Elder Group, you can play a small role there. Okay. The sect master nodded. He did not like fighting for power, nor did he want to fight with others. However, the Jade Blood sect had developed so far that its disciples joining the military state guard had become the norm. Today, there was only one Lu Yi, but there would be more in the future. With his help in the Elder Group, even if he did not give the disciples any special privileges, at least they would not be bullied. Even if Madame Yun did not mention this, the sect master would have thought about it. Now that Shui Yuan had reached the Divine Sea realm, she was strong enough to shoulder the burden of the Jade Blood sect. He could leave without worry. Although he had traveled extensively in the Spirit Stream battlefield and the Cloud River battlefield and experienced many exciting things, leaving the Jade Blood sect for Grand Sky City still gave Lu Yi a strange feeling of leaving home for the first time. There was some anticipation, some excitement, and some reluctance. The spirit boat flew through the sky, looking at the beautiful scenery of the mountains below. With his current speed, it would take him more than 2 days to get to Vast Sky City. If he activated his flying wings and wind travel, it would only be faster if he disregarded the cost. With a 10 points map to guide him, he would not get lost. He traveled all the way and gradually left Ao Mountain. Less than half a day later, when Lu Yi was sitting cross-legged on the spirit boat leisurely, a series of exclamations suddenly came from below, mixed with cries and panicked voices. Lu Yi, there seems to be a flood below. Bi, who was steering the spirit boat, said. Lu Yi hurriedly got up and looked down. He saw that the ground was flooded, and a small village was completely submerged. Under the impact of the flood, most of the houses had collapsed, and only the roofs of the few that were still standing were above the water. In the distance, he could see some figures standing on the roofs, weak and helpless. Cries for help and cries of children filled the air. Save them! Lu Yi hurriedly put away the spirit boat and rushed down. Most of the people he had encountered in the Spirit Stream battlefield and the Cloud River battlefield were cultivators. However, there were still a large number of mortals living in the 9 regions. It was precisely because of these mortals who did not have long lifespans and were prone to illness that the cultivators were born. If a cultivator encountered such a flood, they would naturally be able to escape easily. However, for mortals, such a natural disaster was simply unstoppable. Under normal circumstances, a mortal's residence would be protected by the sect's territory. In fact, there were many mortals living within the territory of the Jade Blood sect. There were even many cities that relied on the Jade Blood sect for survival and were protected by the Jade Blood sect. However, the Jade Blood sect had been desolate in the past, so there were no extra people in the sect to patrol the territory and help the mortals resist disasters. Therefore, in the past few decades, many mortals had migrated away from the territory of the Jade Blood sect. This was also the reason why the sect master liked to run to other people's apprenticeship ceremonies to snatch people away. There were few people in the sect's territory, so naturally, there were not many with cultivation aptitude. Lu Yi did not know which sect this area belonged to, but with the sudden flood, it would take time for the cultivators of this sect to rush over. Since he had encountered it, he naturally could not sit back and do nothing. 9 front formation. Lu Yi shouted. He hurriedly took out the 9 front formation and threw it to him. Lu Yi caught it and held it in his hand. There were not many people living in this village, but there were dozens of families. Now that they were all swept up in the flood, their lives were out of control. It was too unrealistic for him and Yi to save them by themselves. They had to borrow the power of the 9 front formation. This thing could trap people, so it was suitable to be used in this place. The only thing that needed to be used was the spiritual energy used to maintain the 9 front formation. Mother! Father! On the crown of a big tree, a 10-year-old child called out loudly. However, his parents were nowhere to be seen. Fortunately, he had cultivated the ability to climb trees. Otherwise, he would have been swept away by the flood. Suddenly, there was a strong wind above his head. The child looked up and saw a person swooping down from the sky. Immediately after, something covered him. His vision turned black. When he came back to his senses, he had already appeared in a messy stone forest. The child was helpless and terrified. Although he did not know what had happened, he knew that he had been saved by a cultivator. But where was this? Just as he was at a loss of what to do, a figure suddenly appeared beside him. It was a white-haired old man. The old man seemed to have been soaked in the water for a while, as he was shivering from the cold. Seeing the old man, the child hurriedly ran over. Grandpa Chin. Ernyo. The old man coughed softly. Grandpa Chin, have you seen my parents? Where is this place? Your parents? Don't worry. The cultivators of the Clear Spring sect have come to save us. This is a safe place, the old man with the surname Chin comforted the child. He did not know where this place was either. He even mistakenly thought that Lu Yi was a cultivator of the Clear Spring sect. Since it was a cultivator's method, ordinary people naturally could not understand it. More and more people appeared in the messy stone forest. Suddenly, Ernyo cried out in pleasant surprise. Father, mother! She hurriedly rushed over, only to see her parents, whom she had lost contact with. The husband and wife had just escaped and saw their child again. They were so happy that they cried and hugged him tightly, afraid that they would lose him again. Lu Ye's figure shuttled back and forth, taking the struggling people into the 9-front formation. Yi and Hupo were also helping, constantly saving the surrounding villagers and sending them to Lu Yi. However, comparatively speaking, the people saved by Hupo were undoubtedly greatly frightened. Hupo opened his bloody mouth and bit on their clothes. This kind of shock was not something that ordinary people could endure. Among the people saved by Hupo, more than half of them fainted from fright. Those who did not faint even punched and kicked Hupo, which made Hupo very gloomy. In just a few dozen breaths' time, Lu Yi had already saved all the villagers that he could see. As for those that he could not see, they were probably already dead. At this moment, several streaks of light hurriedly rushed over from afar. The person in the lead shouted, "Which cultivator has lent a hand? The Clear Spring sect is endlessly grateful." This was the territory of the Clear Spring sect, and they were also cultivators of the Clear Spring sect. They just happened to be patrolling the nearby territory. When they learned that there was a sudden flood here, they immediately sent a message to the sect. At the same time, they hurriedly rushed over and saw the scene of Lu Yi saving people from afar. As the voice fell, the few of them rushed over to Lu Yi. The leader was at the Cloud River tier, and the others were all at the Spirit Stream tier. When they got closer and saw Lu Ye's face clearly, the leader was shocked. Jade Blood Sect's Lu Ye, fellow cultivator Lu? He had obviously paid special attention to Lu Yi, and had probably seen his image before. Thus, he recognized Lu Ye's identity at a glance. Lu Yi nodded. Holding the 9-front formation in his hand, he continuously urged his spiritual power into it. However, he had no intention of exchanging pleasantries with him. He looked into the distance, and a city several dozen kilometers away came into view. And that city was shockingly on the path of the flood. At this moment, the monstrous flood was only less than 5 kilometers away from that city. Mortals naturally did not see as far as cultivators. There were many mortals in that city who lived and worked peacefully, completely unaware that a disaster was about to befall them. The city could not be considered large, but there were at least several tens of thousands of people living there. Lu Yi could save the survivors of this village by himself, but there was no way he could save the entire city. The few cultivators of the Clear Spring sect who had arrived obviously also saw this scene. The leader's expression changed. Oh no! In the face of such a natural disaster, even Cloud River tier cultivators appeared powerless. Although they had already sent a message to the sect, it would still take time for the people of the sect to rush over. Everyone, quickly go to that small city to warn and evacuate the people. I will go and see the source. Lu Yi said, then handed the 9-front formation in his hand to Yi. A pair of fiery red wings suddenly spread out on his back. With the support of wind travel, he turned into a stream of flame and swept in the direction of the source of the flood. In the present situation, if they wanted to save the people in that city, they could only solve the problem at the source. Otherwise, the entire city would be submerged. Looking in the direction that Lu Yi had left, the leader of the Clear Spring sect disciples seemed to have awakened from a dream. He continued to send a message to the sect to report the situation as he led his junior brothers and sisters toward the small city. A moment later, the peaceful and quiet city was in chaos. On the other side, Yi, who was holding the 9-front formation, arrived on a high ground. She released all the people that had been previously stored in the formation and warned, "Don't run around. Everyone stay here. The people of the Clear Spring sect will soon come to settle you down." Then she turned around and mounted Hu Pe, quickly chasing in the direction that Lu Yi had gone. In the frightened crowd, 2 men looked at the direction that Yi had gone with a complicated gaze. "Big brother, that person just now was Lu Yi, right?" One of them asked softly. The other man was silent. "I haven't seen him for a few years, and he's already so powerful." The person who spoke earlier sighed with emotion. Thinking back to when they were mining slaves in the Evil Moon Valley, the 2 brothers had a lot of friction with Lu Yi and were taught a few harsh lessons by Lu Yi. Who would have thought that Lu Yi, who had embarked on the path of cultivation, would become so powerful in just a few years? The 2 brothers were not able to join any sect because of their lack of aptitude. They were placed here by the Haotian Alliance to live and were destined to be mediocre for the rest of their lives. Everyone has their own fate. What's the point of thinking so much? Although a few years would not erase a person's edges and corners, the 2 brothers had also accepted the reality that they did not have much aptitude for cultivation. It was just that when they suddenly saw Lu Yi today, they were a little shocked and emotional. Yes, everyone has their own fate. Thinking back to when Lu Yi saved them, he did not seem to recognize them at all. He had probably forgotten about them long ago. After all, from the moment they embarked on the path of cultivation, the 2 sides were destined to have different fates. Chapter 856. Following the direction of the source of the flood, Lu Yi continued forward. With the support of his wings of flight and wind travel, his speed was pushed to the limit. Finally, he saw the source of the flood in the distance. It was a large river, but there was a gap in a certain section of the embankment, from which a large amount of water was gushing out. Lu Yi arrived at the gap in a flash, the fiery red wings on his back slowly retracting. After a glance, he immediately took out a formation flag. This gap was not small, and the river water was surging fiercely. He alone could not stop it. If he wanted to block this gap, he would have to borrow the power of a formation. This was not a difficult task for him. His storage space was equipped with all kinds of formation flags all year round. As he urged his spirit power, formation flags shot out one after another, like nails embedded in the gap. The many formation flags resonated with each other, quickly outlining the formation's shape. His spirit power continued to be urged, and in the center of the formation, there was a core spirit pattern. It quickly grew out. It was the defensive spirit pattern. With the defensive spirit pattern as the core of the formation, the defensive formation constructed was extremely sturdy. It naturally had no problem replacing the embankment to block the flood. However, the current environment was not suitable for the formation to be maintained for long periods of time. This was because Lu Yi had constructed the formation in the air, and the power to maintain it came from his spirit power. If he stopped, the formation would not be able to maintain it for long. Unless there was a suitable place to place spirit stones, he could borrow the power of spirit stones to replace his own spirit power. But how could there be a place to place spirit stones in a formation set up in the air? This was not a big problem. All he needed was this little bit of time. When the time came, regardless of whether anyone from the Clear Spring sect came to help, he would be able to find a way to plug the gap again. At that time, the flood would be eliminated. Everything was proceeding smoothly, but just as the defensive spirit pattern was about to take shape, something like a long whip suddenly swept out from the torrential flood, rolling straight towards Lu Yi. The flood surged and waves surged. Even with Lu Ye's powerful mind, he did not detect the other party's attack. In the face of such an attack, Lu Ye's first reaction was not to block or dodge, but to madly urge his spirit power and pour it into the newly formed formation. In the next moment, something tightened around his waist, and the long whip-like thing had already wrapped around him. He, who was hurriedly chasing after them on Hupa, saw Lu Yi being dragged into the water by something from afar. She immediately cried out in alarm, "Lu Yi!" Hu Po's figure also abruptly sped up, but by the time it rushed to the place where Lu Yi had disappeared, there was no longer any trace of her. There was only a huge disappearing wave. Hu Pa growled, and Yi dived into the water to search for Lu Yi. The situation underwater was extremely complicated. Although she had fallen into the water almost at the same time as Lu Yi, when she reached the bottom, she did not see any trace of Lu Yi at all. For a moment, she was burning with anxiety. At this moment, a violent spiritual energy fluctuation came from a certain direction. She turned her head and saw a scarlet light. That was Lu Ye's blade light. Overjoyed, he hurriedly snuck over. Even before arriving, Yang Kai could sense that Lu Yi was fighting with some kind of enemy, and from the aura emanating from the other party, it didn't seem to be a human but more like a monster beast. He suddenly realized that the flood this time wasn't a natural disaster, but a monster beast causing trouble. In the 9 provinces, there were many monsters. Some monsters' beasts had gained intelligence and were proficient in human nature. They knew that cultivators were not to be trifled with, so they didn't dare to break the law to avoid being targeted by cultivators. However, some monsters' beasts were different. Their intelligence was muddled and they still retained their most primitive instincts, so how could they know what cultivators were? That was why there were cultivators patrolling the territory of every sect, mainly to guard against monsters' beasts that had achieved success in their cultivation. This time, it was clearly a water monster. It had destroyed the dam here, resulting in today's flood. Lu Yi had come to seal the gap and was directly targeted by it. He was nervous because it was hard to tell how strong these monsters' beasts without intelligence were. Some were strong, while others were weak. If they encountered a powerful monster beast in this kind of underwater environment, Lu Yi might not be its opponent. Just as she was thinking this, the scarlet blade light disappeared, and she saw Lu Ye's blurry figure rushing up. He was delighted, knowing that Lu Yi had dealt with the monster beast, and hurriedly rushed out. When she came out of the water, she saw Lu Yi standing in the air, holding a monster beast that looked like a monkey in his hand. However, it was different from ordinary monkeys. This monster beast had smooth fur, an extremely long tail, and dense fangs at the side of its mouth. It had a ferocious look. However, this ferocious look had already turned into a dead one. A piercing wound was clearly visible on its body, and blood was flowing down its fur. Lu Yi casually tossed the monster to Hu Po, who was beside him. Monster beasts at the monster general level had monster cores. This water monkey-like monster general was actually quite strong. If it was an ordinary Cloud River 9th Order cultivator, they might not be able to deal with it in such a short time. A battle would be inevitable. After all, they were underwater. Even if a cultivator was underwater, their strength would be greatly reduced. Thinking back to the battle just now, Lu Yi clearly felt that it was difficult to use his full strength. It seemed that there was a treasure in the War Merit Pavilion that he had to save up some War Merit to buy. Otherwise, if he encountered a similar situation in the future, he would not be able to use his full strength. The opponent he encountered this time was not strong enough, and he would definitely be at a disadvantage. As this thought flashed through his mind, Lu Yi hurriedly rushed towards the spirit array he had set up. The clouds moved, and the spirit energy human array could not be maintained for a short period of time. However, if the people of the Winter Wooling District were strong enough to maintain the spirit array, it would definitely collapse. At that time, all his previous efforts would be in vain. At this time, the spirit energy array finally stabilized. The spirit array had cut off the source of the flood. It could be controlled. Although some mortals had been lost, there would not be a big problem in the future. At the very least, the small city that Lu Yi saw before would not be submerged. After Baby Fragrance, a Yuan, Earth swept over from the 0th day. Her aura was strong, and she was obviously at the true Yen Lake realm. She was probably a Clear Spring sect cultivator who had received a message from a disciple and rushed over to investigate the situation. When he saw the scene on Lu Ye's side from afar, he could not help but be surprised. When he landed in front of the building, he was even more surprised, a spirit array in the air. What shocked him even more was that the spirit energy fluctuations coming from Lu Yi were obviously only at the 9th order Cloud River realm, far from the true lake realm. Such cultivation and such attainments in the spirit array Dao were simply beyond imagination. He could also see that it was this spirit array that had turned into a barrier to prevent the spread of the flood. However, the current situation did not solve the root of the problem. He had to find a way to seal the gap in the dam. Clear Spring Sect's Yuan Cho greets this junior brother. Many thanks for junior brother's help. May I ask which sect junior brother is from? With his age and cultivation, it was naturally no problem for him to call Lu Yi junior brother. He probably asked this question because he felt that Lu Yi was from a top sect. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to have such attainments in the spirit array Dao at such a low cultivation. Jade Blood Sect's Lu Yi. Jade Blood Sect? Yuan Cho raised his eyebrows, looking a little surprised. So it's junior brother Lu. Seeing that he seemed to want to say something, Lu Yi hurriedly interrupted. Senior brother Yuan, please find a way to seal this gap. Only then did Yuan Cho react and said apologetically, Junior brother, please wait a moment. Saying so, he hurriedly rushed off into the distance. When he returned, he kept taking out a large number of stones and sinking them into the water. After repeating this several times, the situation at the gap finally stabilized. When he returned for the last time, Lu Yi was nowhere to be seen. Looking up, he could only see a stream of light quickly disappearing at the end of his field of vision. Jade Blood Sect really did accept a good seedling. Yuan Cho was deep in thought. Back when Lu Yi joined the Jade Blood Sect and left his name in the sect, Yuan Cho naturally heard about it. It was also at that time that he learnt of Lu Ye's name. However, to a true lake-stage cultivator like him, Lu Yi back then wasn't worth much attention. In just a few years, Lu Yi had reached the 9th order Cloud River realm and was about to break through to the true lake realm. Moreover, he had such attainments in the spirit array Dao that Yuan Cho could not help but feel envious. Sure enough, good seedlings were all from other sections. Figures rushed over from afar and landed beside Yuan Cho, cupping their fists and saluting him. Some called him martial uncle, while others called him senior brother. They were all cultivators of the Clear Spring sect who had rushed here after receiving the news. If Lu Yi could think of blocking the flood at the source, they could naturally think of it as well. However, Yuan Cho's cultivation was the highest, so he was the first to arrive. Senior brother, who set up this spirit array? A cultivator who was about the same age as Yuan Cho asked with surprise. In his impression, this senior brother Yuan of his didn't know anything about the Tao of formations, so it was utterly impossible to execute such a method of forming a formation in midair without an extremely high attainment in the Tao of formations. It was set up by a junior brother called Lu Yi from the Jade Blood Sect. He helped us a lot this time. Yuan Cho explained casually, this spirit array won't last long. Let's seal the gap first. Although he had taken a lot of big stones just now and barely managed to maintain the rapids in the gap, there was still a gap between the big stones, so it was necessary to seal it completely. A group of cultivators got to work and quickly dealt with the problem here. The spirit array left by Lu Yi also collapsed. Senior brother, look. The cultivator who spoke just now suddenly picked up a tattered corpse from the side and walked over to Yuan Cho. Yuan Cho took a closer look and saw that it was a monster general-level water monster. It had been killed not long ago and its monster core had been taken away. Is this water monster causing trouble? Yuan Cho suddenly realized. He was wondering why there was suddenly a problem with the dam here. The Clear Spring sect had disciples patrolling the area every day, especially the big river dams that passed by here. The disciples were especially careful in their inspection, fearing that a sudden burst would affect the mortals under their rule. Logically speaking, something like this should not have happened. It was not until he saw this water monster that Yuan Cho understood. Chapter 857. Who is in charge of patrolling this area? Yuan Chao's gaze swept over the crowd. A Cloud River cultivator walked out of the crowd and cupped his fists. Marshal Uncle, it's me. Be sure to patrol more carefully in the future. Don't let something like this happen again. Yes. The cultivator replied, but hesitated to say more. Yuan Chou frowned. If you have something to say it. The cultivator said, Marshal Uncle, this disciple is extremely careful every time he patrols, especially in the water. He doesn't dare to overlook anything. Just yesterday, this disciple patrolled this section of the waterway and found nothing strange. No need to quibble. Yuan Chou reprimanded in a deep voice. Monsters in the water are good at hiding. It's normal for you to overlook something. Since this monster appeared here and destroyed the dam, it's your fault. It can't be that someone deliberately left this monster here to harm the mortals under my Clear Spring sect. If it weren't for that Blue Blood sect disciple, Lu City 50 kilometers away would have been destroyed. At that time, tens of thousands of mortals. At this point, Yuan Chao's expression suddenly changed. He raised his eyes and glanced in the direction Lu Yi had left. Lu Yi was already a Cloud River 9th Order cultivator. The direction he had left in was in the direction of Grand Sky City. Had he received a transfer order from Grand Sky City and was heading there to report? As far as he knew, once a transfer order was issued, the time limit would not be too long. Once the time limit was exceeded, it was no laughing matter. The state guards of each province were all military units. Military orders were like mountains, and the law was merciless. If Lu Yi did not arrive in Grand Sky City before the time limit, even the gods would not be able to save him. He had just said it casually, but what if someone had deliberately left this monster here? The timing was too coincidental. Lu Yi had just flown nearby when the flood broke out. He had come here to block the source of the flood, but he had probably been ambushed by this monster. Though the water beast was dead, Yuan Chou could still see that this beast was a demonic general, which was enough to cause considerable trouble for cultivators in the Cloud River tier. At the same time, it would not harm their lives. Senior brother? A cultivator from the Clear Spring sect called out softly. It was unknown what Yuan Chou was thinking. Nothing. Yuan Chou collected his thoughts, not daring to think about it anymore. Some things couldn't be stopped. The more he thought about it, the more terrifying it became. He hoped that he was overthinking it. After leaving the river, Lu Yi continued on his way. From dawn to dusk, he did not stop to rest. Only after midnight did he descend and casually find a place in the deep mountains and old forests. He laid down a formation to guard the surroundings and recuperated. 2 hours later, just as Lu Yi was about to set off again, the sound of something breaking through the air entered his ears, as if someone was passing by. Lu Yi raised his eyes and looked over. Under the moonlight, he saw a black-clothed man pass by not too far away. The black-clothed man seemed to be in a hurry, and he had a panicked expression on his face, as if some danger was approaching from behind. Furthermore, the spiritual energy waves emitted from this person was shockingly at the true lake stage. Danger was indeed approaching from behind. Just as Lu Yi caught sight of the black-clothed man, a shout rang out from afar. "Where do you think you're going?" His words were accompanied by the sound of a sword chime, and sword light wantonly flashed. The black-robed man was obviously running away, and he probably didn't want to pay any attention to Lu Yi, but when he felt the murderous intent behind him, he gritted his teeth and flew straight towards Lu Yi. Lu Yi didn't know what was going on. He was just resting here, but from the looks of it, he seemed to have been involved in a battle between two parties. This was considered the territory of the Grand Sky Alliance. As cultivators of the Grand Sky Alliance, even if they had some conflicts, they wouldn't fight with such great fanfare. Therefore, Lu Yi instantly understood that one of the two parties involved in this battle must be from the Wan Mo Ridge. The War Province was a place where the two big camps were fighting over. Both sides would infiltrate their own territories to create panic and kill the rising stars of the other side. This was a common thing. It wasn't strange to meet people from the Wan Mo Ridge here. However, Lu Yi felt that he was unlucky to have encountered such a thing. The person chasing him was obviously a sword cultivator, and he had the demeanor of the North Xian sword sect. In addition to the black-clothed man's actions, It was very clear which side was the Grand Sky Alliance and which side was the Wanimo Ridge. This black-clothed man obviously knew that he couldn't shake off the sword cultivator, so he wanted to make use of him to make the sword cultivator hesitate. No matter what, if two true Lake Tier cultivators fought here, he would definitely be involved as a Cloud River Tier cultivator. By then, the side of the Grand Sky Alliance would have their hands tied. It could even be said that the black-clothed man wanted to kidnap him. However, this black-clothed man obviously thought too much. If it was an ordinary Cloud River Tier cultivator facing such a situation, they could only escape. However, Lu Yi had set up a protective array around him, and in order to save time, he directly used the array foundation. In this way, the protective array's strength was very strong. The black-clothed man swooped down from the sky like an eagle, and the spiritual power around him was activated, ready to capture Lu Yi. Although he was injured in the process of chasing, a true Lake Tier cultivator was still a true Lake Tier cultivator. Capturing a Cloud River Tier cultivator naturally wasn't a problem. However, what made him feel uncertain was that the young man below seemed to be scared silly. He stood in place, not moving at all, and only calmly stared into his eyes. From the other's eyes, the black-clothed man couldn't see any trace of panic. The other was calm and composed, as if he didn't take him seriously at all. He instinctively felt that something was wrong, but it was already too late to retreat now. The sword cultivator chasing after him was extremely fast, and if he couldn't quickly capture this young man, he definitely wouldn't be able to survive. In fact, even if he succeeded, he wasn't sure whether the other would hesitate to attack for fear of breaking the vases. The distance between them rapidly closed, and very soon he was in front of Lu Yi. The black-clothed man stretched out his hand to grab Lu Yi's neck. Then, he saw Lu Yi raise a foot and lightly stomp. The spiritual power around his body surged, and a light screen in the shape of a large inverted bowl suddenly appeared, covering Lu Yi tightly. A protective array. The black-clothed man was shocked. He never thought that this young man was actually a formation cultivator. Only a formation cultivator could set up an array beside him when he was resting in the wild. However, how strong could a protective array set up by a Cloud River Tier cultivator be, no matter how strong it was? With a flip of his hand, a short blade appeared in his hand. True Lake Stage spiritual energy was infused into the short blade, activating all the restrictions on the magic tool. Then, he viciously slashed at the light screen in front of him. The expected scene of the light screen being broken didn't happen. The light screen only fiercely caved in a little, and very quickly recovered to its original state. Impossible! The black-clothed man turned pale with fright. Although he was now injured, and hadn't used his full strength in the attack just now, he was confident that he could break a protective array set up by a Cloud River Tier formation cultivator. In fact, when he had slashed out with that attack, he had already felt the sturdiness of the protective array in front of him. This kind of array, even if he used all his strength, would need at least 3 attacks to break it. He finally understood why the young man in front of him was so calm and composed. It turned out that he had extremely strong confidence in his own array. It was laughable that he had thought. Sensing that the situation was hopeless, the black-clothed man glared hatefully at Lu Yi, as if wanting to imprint him in the depths of his soul, and was about to withdraw. Die! As the harsh shout rang out, dazzling sword light like moonlight slanted, enveloping the black-clothed man. The sword light was cold, and spiritual power surged. The two figures were locked in a fierce battle. However, the sword cultivator's strength was obviously stronger, and the black-clothed man was also injured, so how could he be a match for him? If it weren't for the fact that the sword cultivator was apprehensive of Lu Yi beside him, fearing that the aftershocks of the battle would injure Lu Yi, he would have already succeeded. Lu Yi also saw this and said, "Senior brother, just use your full strength, I can withstand it." Hearing this, the sword cultivator said, "Okay, be careful." As his words fell, the attacks suddenly became much fiercer. The black-clothed man retreated step by step, and in his heart he was already cursing Lu Yi. 30 breaths later, accompanied by a miserable scream, the sword light disappeared, and the black-clothed man fell straight to the ground, his body covered in blood. The sword cultivator put away his flying sword and took the black-clothed man's storage pouch. He also took a token from the man's clothes, nodded with satisfaction, and stuffed it into his bosom. Only then did he have time to explain to Lu Yi, "This Wan Mo Ling scoundrel snuck into the vicinity with evil intentions and was discovered by me. I chased him all the way here and frightened junior brother." "Thank you, senior brother." Lu Yi cupped his fists. The sword cultivator nodded slightly. Although this is Haotian Alliance territory, there are often Wan Mo Ling scoundrels coming and going. Junior brother must be careful alone. It's best if you hurry to a nearby city to stay the night, and don't stay in the wilderness for too long at night. He didn't have any intention of talking to Lu Yi in detail, nor did he have any intention of protecting Lu Yi. For cultivators, resting in the wilderness was a common thing, so he just gave a few words of advice. He quickly left. "Alone?" he asked. "Not necessarily." Lu Yi put away the formation flag and foundation, and soared into the sky. 9 regions was still very lively. Before, he had only cultivated and sharpened himself in the 2 major battlefields, and had never experienced the glory of 9 regions. Walking out of the Jade Blood Sect this time, it was like entering a new world. The sky gradually brightened, and more than half of the journey was already done. According to his current speed, he would reach Haotian City before tonight. When he passed by a spirit mountain, Lu Yi suddenly stopped, and raised his hand to press the hilt of his saber. Crouching on his shoulder, Hupo's hair stood on end, and a low growl came from his throat. At this moment, somewhere on the spirit mountain below, a dragon-like flowing light soared into the sky, and attacked Lu Yi. The brilliant power was extremely shocking. This was a technique unleashed by a true lake-stage cultivator. Lu Yi immediately tried to dodge, but a true lake-stage cultivator's control of their spiritual power was like an extension of their body. No matter how Lu Yi dodged, the technique was like a maggot attached to a bone, and he couldn't get rid of it. It quickly closed the distance between Lu Yi and himself. Feeling the power of the technique, Lu Yi realized that he couldn't avoid this attack. Gritting his teeth, Lu Yi stood in midair, raised his hands in front of him, and released his spiritual power. A huge defensive spiritual pattern appeared in front of him. At the same time, a figure suddenly appeared not far away, wrapped in a shocking power, and rushed towards the spirit mountain. Feeling the familiar aura, Lu Yi let out a long breath, knowing that his previous guess was right. Chapter 858. The battle on Spirit Peak ended quickly. Without the spell cultivator controlling it, the power of the spell was greatly reduced. It crashed into Lu Ye's defensive spiritual pattern and shattered it. Lu Ye's figure flew out. Although he was in a sorry state, he was not seriously injured. When Lu Yi rushed to Spirit Peak, he saw his second senior sister, Shui Yuan, at a glance. There was also a cultivator with blood at the corner of his mouth. His face was pale and he was holding his chest. Looking at his attire, it was obvious that he was a spell cultivator. The spell that attacked Lu Yi just now was also cast by him. At this moment, the spell cultivator explained to Shui Yuan with a distressed face, "Senior sister Shui Yuan, it's really a misunderstanding. I received a secret order that there would be a thief from Wanmo Ridge passing by and I was ordered to capture him. Who knew that this would happen?" "Whose secret order was it?" Shui Yuan asked coldly. The spell cultivator smiled bitterly. "Senior sister is also a guard of the military province. You should know that the law is like a mountain. Don't make things difficult for me." Since it was a secret order, how could he casually tell others? Shui Yuan stared at him coldly. After a long while, she gritted her teeth and said, "Get lost." The spell cultivator took a deep breath and cupped his fists at Shui Yuan before leaving quickly. "Second senior sister." Lu Yi stepped forward. Lu Yi was not surprised that Shui Yuan might be following behind him to protect him. Although he did not find any trace or aura of Shui Yuan along the way, he could feel that someone was following him when he left Jade Blood Sect. The sect master was with Master, so the person behind him could only be his second senior sister. "Are you all right?" Shui Yuan turned around and asked. She glanced at Lu Yi from head to toe. After confirming that he was unharmed, she was relieved. "I'm fine." Lu Yi shook his head. What will happen if I don't arrive at Grand Sky City on time? Military orders are like mountains. If you don't arrive on time, you'll definitely die. Lu Yi raised his eyebrows. Someone wants to kill me? It seems that you've realized it. Lu Yi said, I didn't think about it before, but some things are just too coincidental. He had just left the Jade Blood Sect for Grand Heaven City when he encountered a flood along the way. Then, he encountered the Grand Heaven Alliance's sword cultivators who were chasing after the Myriad Devil Ridge scoundrels. Unfortunately, the Myriad Devil Ridge scoundrels wanted to capture him when they were escaping. If these two incidents were just coincidences, then the fact that he had been ambushed by that spell cultivator was worth thinking about. A powerful attack from a true lake stage cultivator was something that Lu Yi might not be able to defend against even with the defensive spirit rune. It could be said that if Shui Yuanyuan didn't appear in time to injure the cultivator and prevent him from casting his spell, Lu Yi would definitely be injured. It might even be a serious injury. Once that happened, the journey would definitely be delayed, and whether or not they could reach Vast Sky City before the time limit was another matter altogether. The law cultivator who ambushed him might not know the truth. But from his point of view, even if he had seriously injured Lu Yi, as long as his life was not in danger, there was nothing wrong with it. He was just following orders. At most, it would be a misunderstanding. When the time came, he could just apologize. This was also the reason why Shui Yuan didn't kill him. If she really killed a true lake stage cultivator from the same camp, the situation would become very troublesome. What's more, he might have been used. From the looks of it, the flood and the escaping 1mo Ridge cultivators were just probing? Lu Yi suddenly understood. These two incidents, while delaying Lu Ye's journey, were mainly to test whether there was an expert protecting Lu Yi. They didn't see any traces of the Jade Blood Sect's experts, which was why they attacked directly. Little junior brother, you are very smart. Shui Yuan looked at Lu Yi. The road to Vast Sky City is thorny, you must be careful. I know. Lu Yi nodded. To be able to arrange all these things without anyone noticing, the person behind the scenes must have extraordinary power and status. Their target wasn't him, but the Jade Blood Sect. The Wanimo Ridge wasn't a monolithic block, but wasn't the Vast Sky Alliance the same? A large and small faction formed by sects and clans, with many factions within, it was very normal for them to have their own plans. The poison left behind by the Jade Blood Sect more than 30 years ago left many people brooding over it. There won't be any more waves on the road ahead. After entering the military province guards, remember to keep a low profile. Since Shui Yuan had already appeared, the person behind the scenes wouldn't dare to do anything to avoid being caught. Yes, senior sister, take care. Lu Yi bowed and turned to leave. Looking at the direction Lu Yi left, Shui Yuan was silent for a long time. After a long while, she raised her hand and tapped on her battlefield imprint, sending out a few messages. Just as Shui Yuan said, there were no more waves on the road ahead. Lu Yi sped all the way and finally arrived at Vast Sky City in the evening. The 12 passes of the military province were the front line for the Vast Sky Alliance to fight against the Wanmo Ridge. After these 12 passes was the center of the entire military province guards. Vast Sky City was also the last line of defense for the Vast Sky Alliance. Just the city wall alone was 100 zhang tall. On the city wall, there were traces of time and many traces left behind after a great battle could be faintly seen. A few decades ago, Vast Sky City had experienced a great calamity and was almost captured by the Wanmo Ridge. If the center was captured that day, the military province would definitely be in danger. So far, all the cities that Lu Yi had seen were like grass in front of a big tree in front of Vast Sky City. Even if he was dozens of miles away, he could clearly see the various defensive structures on the city wall. Moving his body, he quickly arrived in front of Vast Sky City. Lu Yi looked left and right, trying to find the city gate. After looking around, he realized that there was no gate in the city. There were constantly cultivators rushing over from all directions and all of them directly rushed into the city. Lu Yi understood that for cultivators who could fly, there was no need for the city gate to exist. If it really existed, it might instead become a weak point in the defense. If he wanted to enter the city, he could just fly in. Learning from the others, Lu Yi directly flew over the city wall and rushed into the city. As soon as he stepped into Vast Sky City, Lu Yi felt the battlefield imprint on the back of his hand jump slightly and emit a blue light urgently. Under normal circumstances, there would only be such a reaction when a cultivator took the initiative to show his battlefield imprint. However, there was clearly a mysterious force in Vast Sky City that could stimulate the battlefield imprint of all cultivators who entered the city to determine the camp of the person who came in. In this way, no cultivator from Wanmo Ridge could barge into this place. Although the city was large, there were not many cultivators in the city. Most of them were Cloud River tier cultivators who had just rushed here from outside. There was an accident at the Cloud River battlefield. At this time, it was merging with the Peerless Continent, causing the Cloud River battlefield to be temporarily closed. The Cloud River tier cultivators who had nowhere to go naturally flocked to the front line of the confrontation between the two camps. No matter what, after entering the military prefecture guards, they could receive a monthly salary. That was real military merit. If they killed enemies at the front line or completed missions given by the military prefecture guards, they could receive even more benefits. To cultivators, this was naturally a great attraction. Hence, at this stage, there were many cultivators in Vast Sky City. They all rushed here from various large sects to prepare to join the military prefecture guards. Usually, there were very few people in this large city. 99% of the military prefecture guards were at the front line. There were not many people left in the center. Now that they had arrived at Vast Sky City, they naturally had to report first. He was the majority of the Cloud River tier cultivators who came here. They were all different. Others came here of their own accord to join the military prefecture guards, while he came here after receiving a transfer order. Hence, at this stage, there were many cultivators in Vast Sky City. They all rushed here from various large sects to prepare to join the military prefecture guards. Usually, there were very few people in this large city. 99% of the military prefecture guards were at the front line. There were not many people left in the center. Now that he had arrived at Vast Sky City, he naturally had to report first. He was different from the majority of the Cloud River tier cultivators who came here. Others came here of their own accord to join the military prefecture guards, while he came here after receiving a transfer order. Hence, he had to report to the dispatch office first. Shui Yuan had specially reminded him about this before he came. The so-called 3-day time limit was not based on the time he arrived at Vast Sky City, but on the time he reported to the dispatch office. He was not too sure where the dispatch office was, but this kind of thing could be easily found out by asking around. Not long after, Lu Yi arrived outside a large hall. There were cultivators standing guard outside the hall. When they saw Lu Yi, they all looked over with rapt attention. Lu Yi clasped his fists. Jade Blood Sect's Lu Yi has come to report. The person on the left said, "Wait here. The commander is receiving a guest." Lu Yi then stood quietly to one side, waiting silently. At this time, it was already night, and the sky was full of stars, but the whole Vast Sky City was still extraordinarily lively. A large number of cultivators flew here and there in the sky. Vast Sky City did not forbid flying. After all, this city was vast. If flying was not allowed, it would waste a lot of time just traveling. Lu Yi was bored, so he raised his head to look, and very soon he saw something. There seemed to be an unspoken rule for cultivators flying, and that was, the higher the cultivation level, the higher they could fly. For example, Spirit Stream tier cultivators could control flying spirit tools. Most of them could fly within 10 centimeters of the ground. When one reached the Cloud River tier, it would be within 60 meters, and when one reached the True Lake tier, it would be within 60 meters. It was unknown how this rule came to be. Although the cultivators came and went, it was quite lively, but the dispatch office was quite cold. It seemed that he was the only one waiting for the dispatch office. Lu Yi did not think too much about it. Now that the situation was here, he might as well take it as it came. The stars and moon moved and time passed. Lu Yi frowned. The time limit on the transfer order was based on the time he would report to the dispatch office. It was calculated, So although he arrived at Vast Sky City within the time limit, if he did not report to the dispatch office in time, he would probably be punished by military law, and his head would roll. Thinking of this, Lu Yi stepped forward and came to the cultivator on duty. He cupped his fists and said, "Senior Marshal Brother, may I ask when the dispatch office will receive me?" That cultivator still only glanced at Lu Yi and replied casually, "Wait." Lu Yi frowned. "May I trouble you to pass on the message?" That cultivator's expression was rather impatient. Lu Yi stared at him fixedly. In the main hall, the fragrance of tea wafted. A very charming woman raised her cup and sipped lightly. She held a jade scroll in her hand and checked it quietly. From time to time, the corners of her mouth would curl up, as if she had seen something interesting. On a chair at the side, there was a man in martial arts clothes reclining. He crossed his legs and looked happy and content. "Leg." The woman did not even raise her head and said softly. The man in martial arts clothes snorted, put down his crossed leg, and sat up straight. "He's already here and you don't want to see him? It's not time yet, what's the hurry?" "Hurry. If the time limit is up, he will be punished by military law. Aren't you afraid that Shui Yuan will take your life? That girl has also advanced to the Divine Ocean tier. Hurry." Click to download the best book chasing app. Many readers use this to read books aloud. Chapter 859. Don't you have a good relationship with Shui Yuan? Logically speaking, you should take care of the people of Jade Blood Sect. What are you trying to do? The man was puzzled. Personal relations are personal relations. This is Grand Sky City and the dispatch office. How can you mix personal relations with military affairs? The woman spoke in a righteous tone. The man chuckled. "I almost believed you." Whatever. At this moment, violent spirit energy fluctuations came from outside the hall, followed by someone shouting, "How dare you!" The sound of spirit energy fluctuations mixed with the sound of spirit weapons colliding could be heard. Then, 3 figures rushed into the hall, 1 in front and 2 behind. The man looked at Lu Yi in astonishment and blurted out, "You've got guts." What was this place? This was Grand Sky City's dispatch office. No one had ever dared to barge in so directly. What surprised him even more was that Lu Yi had really barged in. The 2 guards at the door were quite strong, but they couldn't stop Lu Yi at all. On the other side, Lu Yi looked up and saw the man and woman at a glance. His heart trembled as he realized how strong the 2 were. Both of them were at the Divine Sea realm. He didn't know who was the dispatch office's master and who was the guest. But he had been waiting outside for so long, and there was still no intention to see him. Obviously, they were deliberately making things difficult for him. So no matter how long he waited outside, it was meaningless. In that case, he might as well not wait and just barge in. With a flip of his hand, he held up a bronze token. It was the transfer order that Zhao Che had sent to Jade Blood Sect. Lu Yi said loudly, "Jade Blood Sect disciple Lu Yi is here to report." The 2 cultivators who rushed in after him were both annoyed and frightened. One of them said, "Please forgive us, dispatch office's master. This person you may leave." "Yes." The 2 cultivators felt that they had lost face. They glared at Lu Yi hatefully and quickly retreated. Only then did Lu Yi look at the charming woman in palace attire. So she was the dispatch office's master. The woman got up and walked slowly to Lu Yi, standing 10 meters away from him. Her expression was indifferent and she didn't smile. "Jade Blood Sect's Lu Yi has come to report." Lu Yi called out again. The woman raised her hand, and the copper token instantly flew into her palm. She then casually tossed it into the token on the table beside her. Thus, Lu Yi could be considered to have complied with the transfer order. "You really have guts." The woman snorted coldly. "The time limit is almost up. Disciple has been anxiously waiting outside. Minister, please forgive me." "So you barged in?" "I had no choice." What a helpless move. The woman seemed to be very annoyed. The might of the Spirit Sea realm spread out. Lu Yi felt the pressure as heavy as a mountain. Sweat appeared on his forehead. She coldly said, "I don't care what status you have in the Blue Blood Sect or what you've done before. Now that you've come to Grand Heaven City, you must abide by the rules here. Didn't anyone tell you about this before you came? Senior Marshal's sister once warned me. Since there are instructions, how can I not bear them in mind? If everyone was as unruly as you, the army of soldiers would have been destroyed long ago. She turned to look at the man. Qian Wudong, you are the minister of the law department. How can you break into an important military base without prior notice? The man named Qian Wudong looked serious and said in a deep voice, according to the law, you should be beheaded. Lu Ye's eyebrows twitched. Beheaded? Hupu, who was squatting on his shoulder, immediately growled at the woman. However, the woman flicked him on the forehead and he immediately quieted down. Qian Wudong changed the topic. Since this is the first offense, you can be whipped and locked up for 10 days as a warning to others. If you do it again, there will be no mercy. Martial god of Azura, Lu Yi finally understood what this woman was planning. It was not a bad idea. The woman looked at him leisurely. Since you, the minister of the law department, have spoken, then I will leave it to you. She turned around and left. Qian Wudong nodded and walked to Lu Ye's side. He looked at him with a smile. Kid, your luck is not so good. Come with me. He stepped out of the room. Lu Yi followed with a sullen face, full of helplessness. He thought that he would be able to make a name for himself after joining the Force Prefecture Guards. Now, he was going to be punished before he even officially joined the Force Prefecture Guards. However, the situation at that time didn't allow him to make any other choice. The minister of the law department was obviously targeting him. If he didn't break in directly, he might really be delayed until the time limit was up. That would be a big problem. Compared to that, receiving a little punishment was nothing. Lu Yi would remember this and he would get his revenge sooner or later. As for finding a way to escape from here, not to mention that he didn't have the chance, even if he did, Lu Yi wouldn't do something that would bring shame to the Force. Running away before a battle was a big taboo in the Force Prefecture Guards. Kid, some things are not as simple as you think. Some people are not as simple as you think. Now that you have just come to Grand Sky City and you are still young, it's natural that you can't see it clearly. You will slowly understand it in the future. Qian Wudong's voice suddenly came from the front. Lu Yi didn't say a word and just followed behind him. Although the law department minister didn't seem to have any bad intentions towards him and even decided to give him a lighter punishment, it was hard to know what a person's heart was. Lu Yi was new here and didn't know anything. Naturally, he would stick to the principle of less talking and more observing. You are quite cautious. Not bad. Qian Wudong seemed to have noticed his thoughts and smiled. He didn't care. The two of them flew across half of Grand Sky City and landed somewhere. There was a place that looked like a small mountain. At the entrance of the mountain, there was a huge and ferocious Meng beast. Its mouth was wide open, and the insides were pitch black. Just looking at it gave people a bone-chilling feeling. This was the prison of Grand Sky City. It was also the place where all the Force Prefecture Guards were frightened. There was a rumor that if you entered this place, you would lose a layer of skin even if you didn't die. There were a lot of Force Prefecture Guards and they were strict with the law. There were always some cultivators who broke the law of Force Prefecture Guards for various reasons. Most of these cultivators who broke the law of Force Prefecture Guards would be sent here to be punished. All the Force Prefecture Guards wouldn't easily come within 3 miles of this place. Even if they flew over, they would try their best to avoid it. Minister, why are you here? Seeing Qian Wudong, the cultivators who were on duty in front of the prison were all shocked. An elderly man even hurried to greet him. Send someone here. Qian Wudong reached out and grabbed Lu Yi, who had followed him here and was looking around curiously, as if he was holding up a chicken. The elderly man was stupefied. For many years, countless Force Prefecture Guards had been in and out of the prison. However, this was the first time that the minister personally sent someone here. The elderly man's expression suddenly became serious. Minister, what did this kid do? He instinctively thought that Lu Yi had done something unforgivable. Otherwise, why would the minister come here? In an instant, the elderly man's mind filled with many evil scenes. He looked at Lu Yi with a very serious expression. Nothing big. It's just a kid who didn't know the rules and broke into the dispatch department. Qian Wudong explained casually. Ugh. The elderly man didn't know what to say. He looked at Lu Yi with a sympathetic expression. Breaking into the dispatch department wasn't a big deal, but it wasn't a small matter either. The minister probably bumped into him, so he was sent here. I'll leave him to you guys. Take care of him, Qian Wudong said and flew up. Minister, take care. The elderly man understood tacitly and bowed together with the others. When Qian Wudong was far away, the elderly man turned to look at Lu Yi. He waved his hand with a smile. Young friend, please. Thank you. Lu Yi nodded and walked toward the mouth of the giant beast. He disappeared into the darkness. As the elderly man walked down, the dark and damp atmosphere hit him in the face. Soon, he arrived at the first floor of the basement. There were cage-like things on the left and right. Many of them had cultivators trapped in them. Many of them looked miserable. It was obvious that they had been punished. Some of them were even gasping for breath. The elderly man said with a smile, "The prison is a place to imprison those who break the laws of the Wei Kingdom. It's not as good as the environment you were in before. However, every country has its own laws and rules. If they break the laws of the Wei Kingdom, they have to be punished. Young friend, you have broadened your horizons by coming here today. You should be more careful in the future. The laws of the Wei Kingdom are very strict." Thank you for your advice, sir. Lu Yi appreciated the elderly man's kindness. What he saw in front of him made him feel the strict laws of the War Province Guards. If he really did something here, the sect master would be too far away to help him. Lu Yi secretly warned himself. The cultivators imprisoned here are not only those in the Cloud River realm. There are also those in the True Lake realm and even those in the Divine Sea realm. The elderly man continued to speak. What kind of punishment will I receive? Compared to others, Lu Yi cared more about himself. 3 lashes and 10 days of imprisonment. The elderly man didn't hide anything. Before Qian Wudong left, he had already told him to deal with Fang He. Lu Yi nodded. Although he wasn't a body cultivator, his body was strong. 3 lashes wasn't a big deal. As for 10 days of imprisonment, that was even less of a problem. The elderly man laughed eerily. Young friend, don't think that the punishment is light. Of course not. Suddenly, an angry roar came from the front. It's just lashing. Hit me hard. If I cry out, I'll be the one who raised you. The elderly man shook his head. There are always those who don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. As they spoke, they came to a place where the cultivators who broke the law were punished. Lu Yi looked over and saw a bald man hanging in the air with his hands and feet tied. He shouted angrily, I told you to hit me directly. Why are you still hanging me? I'm a true Lake Realm cultivator. I still have my pride. Alright. Stop talking nonsense. I'll hit you now. You can take it. Come on. The man provoked. A sharp sound broke through the air, followed by a crack. The long whip landed on the man's body. Lu Ye's eyelids twitched. He suddenly had the urge to draw his sword and kill his way out. Because the moment the whip landed, the true Lake Realm cultivator's eyes suddenly turned white. His body trembled like a sieve, as if he was suffering great torture and pain. After a full 5 breaths, the man slowly came back to his senses. He opened his mouth and let out a series of miserable screams. He clicked to download the Best Book Chaser app. Many readers used it to read books aloud. Chapter 860. The blood-curdling screams rang out incessantly. The brawny man who had been yelling incessantly just a moment ago no longer had any backbone left. The corner of Lu Ye's eyes twitched. The elderly man who led him in explained, This defiant dragon spike is a spirit artifact. Not only does it hit the body, it also hits the soul. Many cultivators who don't know the truth have suffered greatly here. Little friend, you must hold on. Although Gan Wudong told them not to kill, they couldn't be too obvious. They had to go through the motions. There were screams here and there, but many practitioners who were imprisoned in the nearby cages were shouting. One-eyed wolf, use more strength. This guy still has the strength to scream. You are being merciful, right? Old worm, how many bites did you give him? Why are you beating him so lightly? Are you tickling him? Beat him to death. It was as if he was watching a good show and didn't mind blowing things up. Lu Yi stood aside and watched coldly. He saw the spiritual treasure long whip full of barbs fall on the light again and again. The brawny man's body was badly mutilated. The long whip was called Dragon Thorn, and the practitioner who executed it was Kuang Shaowan, who was described as sloppy, had the cultivation level of Lao Feng, one of Country E's 10 cultivators. He should be the Lao Feng mentioned by the surrounding cultivators. One-eyed wolf. One-eyed wolf lived up to its name. It only had one eye. The other eye, Al Immortal V. Right, must have encountered some disaster. Even if it was the only one left. This eye also emitted a ghostly light, which made people's hearts palpitate. He was the executioner of the execution prison. Everyone who entered the execution prison to be tortured had to go through his hands, and all of them had a layer of skin peeled off. Therefore, he was also a famous existence in the army prefecture guards. Many practitioners who had been in and out of the prison changed their expressions when they heard his name. No one knew what the brawny bald man had done. He had the cultivation of the true lake realm, and his body was extremely strong. The dragon thorn was not only a strong weapon, but also a powerful weapon. After 5 whips, the brawny man was already dead. Lu Ye's heart sank when he saw the guy who had been so majestic just a moment ago hanging there like a dead dog. From this, one could see the foresight of the prison. If it weren't for the fact that the burly man was hanging there limply, it wouldn't have been easy to carry out the punishment. While unconscious, he was whipped 4 more times. Only then did the cultivators from the execution prison untie him and take him away. The one-eyed wolf walked to the side and sat on a blood-stained chair. It grabbed the flagon next to it and drank a mouthful of wine. "Young friend, it's your turn," the elderly man said. Lu Yi took a deep breath and grabbed Hupo from his shoulder. He stuffed the Panshan saber into Hupo's mouth and let Hupo bite it, then strode forward. "Here comes a brat." Someone in a nearby cage saw Lu Yi, and he smiled as he said, "You're still at the Solid Cloud River tier." "Brat, what did you do?" "He was actually captured and brought here. Could it be that he's a deserter?" "Brat, let me teach you a lesson. Don't use your spiritual energy to block it. Relax your mind completely. One whip and you'll faint, and you won't be able to feel anything after that." Brother Zhuang is speaking from experience. "Brat, don't be ungrateful." Shouts came from all directions. Lu Yi walked to the place of execution, and the cultivators from the execution prison came forward to tie up his hands and feet. The rope used to tie him was obviously not an ordinary one. It was at least a spiritual treasure since it could make a true lake-tier cultivator unable to break free. Lu Yi didn't resist because it was unnecessary. He just let them tie him up and hang him up. Not far away, Hupa bit the Panshan saber and looked at him with tears in his eyes. The elderly man walked to the one-eyed wolf and whispered a few words. The one-eyed wolf didn't even raise its head. "You know my rules." The elderly man said, "This is the order of the minister, and he was sent here by the minister himself." The one-eyed wolf raised the flagon to its mouth and stopped. It looked at the elderly man seriously. The elderly man gently nodded, indicating that he wouldn't lie to it. The one-eyed wolf turned its head and glanced at Lu Yi, who was hung up. "Don't ask me, I don't know anything." The elderly man didn't wait for the one-eyed wolf to speak. "Understood." The one-eyed wolf put down the flagon, stood up, grabbed the defiant dragon thorn, and walked behind Lu Yi. At the moment when the spiritual power was activated, the sound of breaking air was heard. Lu Yi only felt that his back was struck by a thunderbolt. The protective spiritual power was instantly broken, and severe pain spread all over his body. Compared to the physical pain, the pain in his spirit was more intense. He had experienced the pain in his spirit countless times. At that time, when his spirit was not too strong, every time he used the Mirage Stone to sharpen himself, he would feel a momentary pain when he came out of it. When he checked the information on the talent tree's leaves, the pain was also unbearable. But compared with what he was experiencing now, that pain was simply the difference between a breeze and a hurricane. He finally understood why even a true lake-tier cultivator couldn't withstand such a whipping. This was not something that ordinary people could bear. With a scream, the blue veins on Lu Ye's forehead bulged, and his whole body trembled violently. The one-eyed wolf couldn't help but frown. The execution was also particular. Since it was an execution, naturally the victim should remember the lesson and not dare to do it again in the future. If you want to remember the lesson, you have to taste the pain. You must make sure that the victim doesn't faint. The strength of one's strength was a skill. The one-eyed wolf had been in charge of the punishment here for decades. It could say that he could make people faint whenever he wanted. Lu Yi was brought here by Qian Wudong, the head of the department, and he had told him to take care of him. He didn't care about him, but he couldn't ignore the department head. His original plan was to directly whip Lu Yi until he fainted. Since Lu Yi was just a Yunhe tier cultivator, he only needed to activate 1/100th of the power of the Defiant Dragon Thorn. In this way, Lu Yi would not feel any pain in the next 2 lashes, and he would appropriately control his strength. Naturally, others wouldn't see any clues. But what surprised him was that although Lu Yi screamed miserably, there was no sign of fainting at all. What a strong spirit! The one-eyed wolf immediately understood where the problem was. The Defiant Dragon Thorn not only hit the body, but also the spirit. If an ordinary Yunhe Tier 9 cultivator was hit by this whip, they wouldn't even scream and would directly faint on the spot. But the one in front of him was obviously different. His spirit was much stronger than expected, which was why he could withstand the Defiant Dragon Thorn. As this thought flashed in his mind, the one-eyed wolf's hands didn't stop moving. 2 more lashes came down, and Lu Ye's back was badly mutilated. After 3 lashes, the elderly man immediately asked someone to put Lu Yi down and raised his hand to hold his arm. Lu Ye's whole body was trembling, and his mouth was hissing with cold air. This experience was unforgettable. No matter what, he couldn't come to this place in the future. Little friend, can you withstand it? The elderly man asked. Lu Yi gritted his teeth and nodded silently. Amazing! The elderly man exclaimed in admiration. He had seen clearly how powerful the one-eyed wolf's attack was. Logically speaking, the Yunhe realm cultivator would not be able to survive the whip. The one-eyed wolf did hold back for the last 2 lashes. Although they looked amazing, in fact, their power was less than 20% of the first whip. Take any healing items you have. You're trapped. The dragon gate can't stimulate your spirit power, the elderly man whispered. The dragon trapping gate was heaven's prison for the first repairman. Cultivators were not like mortals, so the cages used to imprison them were specially refined treasures and covered by a large array. Once they entered the dragon gate, their spirit power would be suppressed in their body and they couldn't move. Hearing this, Lu Ye's hands trembled. He took out some healing pills and swallowed them. After thinking for a while, he took out a jade bottle and kept it close to his body. Not long after, under the guidance of the elderly man, they came to an empty dragon gate and placed him inside. The elderly man said, "Little friend, have a good rest. You will be free in 10 days. But Lu Yi nodded. The elderly man left, and the prison cultivators closed the dragon gate and opened the restriction. On a joyous occasion, Lu Yi felt that the spirit power in his body seemed to be blocked by an invisible person. His spirit power became stagnant and couldn't be stimulated. Now he knew the power of the dragon gate. If such a treasure were to be used to capture people, it would definitely be effective. However, how to trap the enemy within it would be a troublesome matter. The biggest difference between cultivators and mortals was that they had spirit power. Now that the spirit power was restricted, the only advantage of cultivators was the strong physique that came with the improvement of the realm. Body cultivators undoubtedly had a great advantage in this regard, but magic cultivators were unlucky. Although their physique was much stronger than mortals, it was at the bottom of all sects of cultivators. As a result, under the premise that they couldn't stimulate their spirit power, it would affect their recovery speed. Lu Yi was not worried about this. His physique was not as talented as giant armor, but it was not worse than body cultivators in the same realm. Moreover, he had obtained the broken origin of the dragon soaring realm. The vitality in his body was vigorous and enormous. Even if his spirit power was restricted, his recovery speed was not comparable to ordinary cultivators. Silently sitting down, he raised his hand and touched Hupo, who came in with him. I'm fine. These words were meant to comfort both Hu Per and Ti. In this kind of environment, it was inconvenient for her to show herself. She must be worried sick. The injury on his back was nothing, but the pain in his soul was hard to get rid of. However, Lu Yi also had a way to deal with it. He had encountered this kind of situation many times. Looking left and right, and seeing that no one was paying attention to him, he took out the jade bottle he had put away earlier. Opening the bottle, he dipped his hand in a bit of water and put it in his mouth. Soul-cleansing water. For this kind of situation, this item was undoubtedly the most suitable treasure. A warm feeling spread from his soul, as if a pair of invisible hands had brushed past him. The pain disappeared, and Lu Yi even felt a little refreshed. Gently exhaling, Lu Ye's mind relaxed. This calamity was over. Chapter 861. Vast Sky City was bustling with people. A large number of cultivators from the Cloudy River battlefield had gathered here. Although they were now considered to have joined the military prefecture guards, there was no clear conclusion as to where they would be sent. Therefore, they could only stay in Vast Sky City for a short period of time. Only when they were certain of their destination would they head to the front lines to serve. There were 12 major passes in the military prefecture. Under each major pass, there were dozens to hundreds of smaller passes. The front lines used the 12 major passes as hubs and the smaller passes as nodes to form a tight line of defense to protect the Vast Sky Alliance's foundation in the military prefecture. All the major passes and small passes needed cultivators to guard them. The battle at the front lines was intense. There were many casualties among the cultivators, so the military prefecture guards needed to be replenished from time to time. Especially now that a large number of new military prefecture guards had gathered, there were Divine Ocean Realm cultivators from the 12 major passes returning to Vast Sky City to divide up the new guards. In a hall somewhere in Vast Sky City, 12 people were sitting upright, talking and laughing. Suddenly, one of them walked in and presented a jade slip with both hands. Reporting to the department heads, the list of new guards is here. Please take a look. Everyone nodded. One of the young men with a dignified appearance raised his hand and the jade slip engraved with the list of new guards fell into his hand. He glanced at the other 11 people and smiled. Then shall we begin? Let's begin. Someone nodded. All right. The young man replied. He exerted force in his hand and the jade slip immediately shattered. At the same time, a powerful divine sense surged and invisible ripples spread out in all directions with him as the center. This young man who didn't look very old was a Divine Ocean Realm cultivator. When the ripples spread out, thousands of fluorescent lights suddenly flew out from the crushed jade slip. In an instant, they filled the entire hall as if a starry sky had descended here. The 12 people spread out their divine senses and instantly scanned through the countless lights. The information imprinted in the fluorescent lights was clearly imprinted in their minds. Every dot of fluorescent light represented a new guard, including their background, sect, cultivation, age, and rank. It was extremely detailed. In this way, it would be convenient for the 12 people to choose the talents they liked. I'll take it. One of the old men smiled. He raised his hand and pointed. A speck of fluorescent light was guided and fell into a blank jade slip in his hand. This meant that he had chosen this new guard and would bring him to the pass he represented. As for how it would be distributed when they arrived, that would be a matter for the future. The 12 of them made their moves. They didn't seem to be fast, but the countless fluorescent lights that filled the hall were rapidly disappearing. Snatch. This was a tradition that had been passed down for a long time in the military province guards. Outstanding talents were needed at every major checkpoint, and this type of thing was something that only those with fast hands would get. Therefore, every time the people from the 12 great passes came to Hao Tian City to divide up the new guards, they were all people with powerful divine senses. Only a strong spiritual sense would be able to gain the upper hand in such matters. In a short period of less than 10 minutes, all the new guards had been divided up, and to a certain extent, their fates in the future had been decided. The 12 great passes of Hao Tian City were in different situations. Some of the great passes had an advantage in the process of resisting Wanmo Ridge, so it was naturally safer to go there. Some of the great passes were the opposite, so it was naturally more dangerous to go there. The youth who received the jade slip turned his head and looked around, then smiled. Looks like everyone has gained something, so let's do it this way. An old woman suddenly spoke up. Everyone looked at her. The old woman looked at the cultivator who sent the list of new guards over. Is this list incomplete? The cultivator immediately replied, all the new guards who came to Haotian City to report are on it, no one was left out. Not necessarily. The old woman sneered softly. As far as I know, there's still one person who isn't on the list. Oh. The youth looked suspicious. There's one person who was left out, and Elder Yu even knows about it. Looks like you pay a lot of attention to that person. Which family's junior is able to catch Elder Yu's attention? The others also looked curious. Logically speaking, these Divine Sea Realm cultivators came to divide up the new guards on behalf of their respective great passes. Now that they had gained something, they should quickly bring people to the front lines instead of worrying about whether there were any omissions on the list. That was the responsibility of the recruitment department. Moreover, most of the new guards were in the Cloud River realm, and a few in the Spirit Stream realm were not qualified to catch the attention of Divine Sea Realm cultivators. Therefore, the old woman's attention was somewhat special. To catch my attention, he's naturally not an ordinary junior. I think you've more or less heard of his name. As she spoke, she looked at the cultivator who sent the list of new guards over. That Liu Ye from Jade Blood Sect, hasn't he replied yet? As far as I know, the deadline given to him by the dispatch department has long passed. If he doesn't reply, he'll be executed according to the Wei law. If he's already replied, why isn't he on the list? Jade Blood Sect. When the others heard this, they understood what was going on. The Jade Blood Sect of the War Province was an extremely special sect. Many people were indebted to it, but many people also bore grudges. The old woman was undoubtedly the latter. Moreover, she had never concealed her hatred for the Jade Blood Sect. Back then, her only son was under the command of Feng Wujiang of the Jade Blood Sect. In the end, he made a big mistake and was executed by Feng Wujiang in front of the army to pacify the army. Later, Feng Wujiang died, and the Jade Blood Sect declined. However, after so many years, the hatred in her heart could not be resolved. A few years ago, the Jade Blood Sect was about to be wiped out, but Liu Ye appeared and protected the Jade Blood Sect. Now, the Jade Blood Sect showed signs of revival. The old woman's trip this time was for both official and personal reasons. For official reasons, she represented her own great past to select new guards. For personal reasons, she had her eyes on Liu Ye of the Jade Blood Sect. If Liu Ye really fell into her hands, he would not have a good ending. The War Province's guard army had too many honorable methods at their disposal. However, on the list of new guards, the person she was looking for was not on the list. Elder Yu, it's been so many years, and what happened back then? The young man frowned. He felt that it was somewhat inappropriate for a Divine Sea Realm cultivator to target a Cloud River Realm cultivator. Moreover, every injustice had its perpetrator and every debt its debtor. Back then, it was Feng Wujiang who executed the general in front of the army. What did it have to do with Liu Ye? When Feng Wujiang was all-powerful, Liu Ye was not even born yet. If news of this spread, it would damage the image of the War Province's guard army. Don't mention the past to this old woman. The old woman said angrily. This old woman is now the division head of Heaven's Gate's recruitment division. Selecting elite soldiers for Heaven's Gate is my duty. That Liu Ye of the Jade Blood Sect is a rising star and has a reputation. This old woman has taken a liking to him and wants to bring him to Heaven's Gate so that he can make a name for himself. What's wrong with that? There really was no problem. When these high-sounding words came out, even if the others knew what the old woman was thinking, they could not say anything. Or, you all want to steal him from me? The old woman's turbid eyes shone brightly as they swept over everyone present. Some people frowned, some people did not care. Seeing that no one spoke, the old woman looked at the cultivator. Liu Ye is not on the list. Did he not reply? If so, according to the law, he should be executed. This disciple is not too sure. The cultivator's forehead was covered in sweat. He was only here to deliver the list. Who would have thought that something like this would happen? Also, he really did not know about Lu Ye or Lu Ye. If you don't know, then hurry up and ask, the old woman scolded. Yes, division heads, please wait a moment. The cultivator hurriedly responded and began to inquire about Lu Ye. Soon there was news. His face was filled with shock. What? The old woman asked in a low voice. Reporting to division head Yu, that Lu Ye of the Jade Blood sect had already replied a few days ago, but what? Seeing him hesitate, the young man could not help but urge him. The cultivator's expression was strange as he said, but I heard that when he was replying, he offended division head Qian and division head Fan, and was sent to the punishment prison by division head Qian. He did not have time to report to the recruitment division, so his name is not on the list. Qian Wudong, Fan Xiangyi, they were all Divine Sea Realm cultivators of the military province guards, and they were all division heads. They naturally knew who division head Qian and division head Fan were. These two people, one was the head of the law division, and the other was the head of the dispatch division. Both of them held real power. What kind of bear's heart and leopard's guts did that Lu Ye eat to offend them? Or was there more to it than met the eye? Among the 12 people, some were deep in thought, while others did not know whether to laugh or cry. The old woman also frowned. She did not expect things to be like this, but how could she not see through the trick? This was obviously done on purpose. Lu Ye was now in the punishment prison. It looked like he was being punished, but it was actually a form of protection. What's the punishment from the law division? The old woman asked in a low voice. 3 strokes of the whip and 10 days of imprisonment. The cultivator replied, and then added, today is the 5th day. It's just a small mistake, a small punishment is enough. Take him out and let him register at the recruitment division. The old woman said. Although Lu Ye's punishment would be over in 5 days, she could not wait here for another 5 days. Now that the new guards had been decided, she had to quickly bring this batch of new guards back to Heaven's Gate. As for Lu Ye, she was going to take him away today. The cultivator was instantly terrified. He looked at the other Divine Sea Realm cultivators for help. How could he rush to do something like this, even if the old woman said so? The old woman was the division head of the recruitment division in Heaven's Gate. The punishment prison was under the control of the law division. The old woman had no control over the punishment prison. Elder Yu, why do you have to make things difficult for him? When the young man spoke, he waved at the cultivator. The latter hurriedly left as if he had been pardoned. The whirlpool here was very dangerous, and he did not dare to get involved. The old woman also realized that she was being a little too forceful, so she did not stop the cultivator from leaving. Instead, she raised her hand and tapped on her battlefield imprint, quickly sending a message. Obviously, she wanted to use her connections to get Lu Ye out of the punishment prison. Seeing this, the others could not say anything, and they all shook their heads. Chapter 862. Originally, they had no intention of staying in Haotian City any longer since the new guard had been decided. However, they couldn't just leave now. Among the 12 people, there were also some who sided with the Jade Blood sect. Seeing the old woman's message, they frowned and thought about how to resolve the matter. With the old woman's ability, it shouldn't be a big problem for her to bring out a Cloud River tier cultivator from the punishment prison. Moreover, once Lu Ye was brought out and registered with the military recruitment department, with the identity of a military prefecture guard, the old woman could justifiably bring him to Heaven's Gate Pass. Then, no one would be able to stop her unless they were willing to fight with the old woman for Lu Ye. However, if they did that, the old woman's hatred for the Jade Blood sect would cause her to fall out with them. The Divine Ocean tier cultivators who sided with the Jade Blood sect all had headaches. At the same time, in the dispatch office, Fan Xiangyi was sipping tea just like a few days ago. Suddenly, a figure rushed in. It was Gan Wudong. Fan Xiangyi didn't even raise her head. What's the matter? Gan Wudong sat down in front of her and poured himself a cup of tea. He took a sip and said, "The crazy woman surnamed you from Heaven's Gate wants to get someone out of the prison." Lu Ye? Fan Xiangyi immediately understood. Who else could it be? Gan Wudong snorted. A divine ocean tier cultivator plotting against a cultivator of the Cloud River tier. That's ridiculous. Hatred is like old wine. The more it ferments, the stronger it gets. Fan Xiangyi said calmly, especially for someone like him, who has half his neck in the ground. It's not easy to let go. Fortunately, I locked him up for 10 days. Now there are only 5 days left. If I don't say anything, even a fly can't get out of the prison. That crazy woman won't wait for 5 days. Let him go. Yes, Gan Wudong replied, but soon realized something was wrong. Let him go? Are you sure? If he's let out, he'll be taken to Heaven's Gate. Let him go. She can't take him away. Gan Wudong frowned. What are you doing? Are you trying to take him into the dispatch office? But that wasn't right. Whether it was his law division or Fan Xiangyi's order division, the requirements for cultivation were very high. The cultivators of the two divisions had to be at least in the true lake stage. Cloud River stage cultivators weren't qualified to join the two divisions. This was because when it came to passing down orders, the faster the better. Naturally, the requirement for one's cultivation level was very high. By the same logic, the law division would often send out soldiers to capture some state guards who had made mistakes. With Lu Ye's current cultivation, there was no way he could join the two divisions. Naturally, someone will try to snatch him away from her. Fan Xiangyi smiled sweetly. Qian Wudong looked at her side profile and vaguely sensed something. He read, "You'll be fine after you die." He immediately sent out a message. Lu Yi sat upright in the dragon cage of the punishment prison. Shen Bian's injuries were basically all healed. His heart was full, and the benefits of his strong physique were undoubtedly evident. Wherever he went, he would not be able to activate his spiritual power. It was also beneficial for his own recovery. It wasn't much of a hindrance. However, Tian Wei was unable to use his heavenly energy and could not cultivate. It was a waste of time for the woman to die. While he was imprinting, his mind was suddenly shaken. He quickly regained his senses. When he opened his eyes, he saw that the elderly man who had sent him in was standing in front of him. "Young friend, you can go out now." Lu Yi asked curiously, "Isn't the time limit not up yet?" Previously, he said that he would be locked up for 10 days. Only 5 days had passed. The elderly man shook his head. "This old man is not sure. I was just following orders." Lu Yi did not ask any more questions. He stood up, and Hoopa jumped onto his shoulder and crouched down. He followed the elderly man all the way out, and soon he saw the light of day again. Outside the punishment prison, the elderly man said, "The higher-ups have ordered you to go to the recruitment department immediately. It's in the direction of Yen." "Woman." Lu Shipao began to write. "Let's ask." The location of the recruitment department was very conspicuous. A few days ago, Lu Yi had passed by this place. At that time, it was packed with cultivators who had rushed here to register. However, the recruitment division was rather deserted today. The efficiency of the recruitment department was very high. The two EA alchemists had all finished registering, and even the destination had been decided. Now, only Lu Yi was left. He was late. When he rushed to the recruitment department's main hall, several pairs of eyes immediately stared at him. Obviously, they were cultivators on duty here. Lu Yi saw a familiar face at a glance. Lu Yi. That person was handsome, and the mustache at the corner of his mouth added a touch of elegance and elegance. He looked over with a smile. Lu Yi's face immediately darkened. He said unhappily, "I didn't expect to see you again." The guy in front of him was shockingly Vitality Sex Lishan. Did the name Lu Yi spread from him? When Tuan Shipao was in the Cloudy River battlefield, he had also thought about whether or not Jiyun Di Ba Gang was in the 11th edition of Jinhai. He had already made up his mind that if he really met him, he would definitely teach him a good lesson. It was because of this guy that his name had changed. Even the name on the battlefield imprint showed that it was Lu Yi. It was just that Lu Yi had not seen him in the Cloudy River battlefield. He did not expect to meet him here. However, this thing can be slowly improved, so don't worry too much about the initial rank. Lu Yi nodded. Understood. As he spoke, he placed his left hand with the battlefield imprint on the disc. The cultivator holding the disc poured his spirit energy into it, and the disc immediately bloomed with light and poured into Lu Ye's battlefield imprint. The battle merit disc has the effect of checking a cultivator's past merit. Even if you use it, it will be recorded. Different grades will give out different lights. White is the worst, which means you haven't gained much merit before. If your cultivation is not enough, you can only be a soldier and listen to others. As Lishan spoke, the luster on the battle merit plate turned milky white, but the milky white quickly changed into a green color. Cyan means your past merit is around 10,000 points. Coupled with your Cloud River 9th stage cultivation, you can be a sergeant. Before he finished speaking, the cyan had turned blue. Blue means less than 50,000 points. Congratulations, Lu Yi, you can be a sergeant. If it's green, why did it turn yellow? Lishan's expression gradually became shocked, because as he explained, the color on the war merit plate was rapidly changing. After green, it was yellow, until the yellow became extremely rich and was about to change to the next color, only then did it stop. In the recruitment division, the cultivators were all shocked. Pairs of eyes stared at the dazzling yellow without blinking. Such a bright yellow only amounted to a few 100,000 points. It was a movement caused by nearly 1,000,000 points of merit. Even true Lake Realm cultivators like them had never obtained such a thing. So many merit points. How could a Cloud River 9th stage cultivator do it? That was why their first reaction was, is there something wrong with the battle merit disc? Lu Shan shook his head. The battle merit disc is linked to Heaven's secrets and battlefield imprints. How can there be a mistake? Since there was no mistake, it meant that Lu Ye's past merit was enormous. Several pairs of eyes looked at Lu Yi in unison, all of them shocked to the extreme. Lu Shan hesitated for a moment before saying, Lu Yi, you have a lot of merit in the past? Do you remember the exact number? Lu Yi shook his head. I can't remember the exact number, but it's probably in the hundreds of thousands. Chapter 863. How many battle merits had Lu Yi obtained? He really couldn't remember, but the rough number was still clear. Of course. He hadn't come into contact with battle merits in the entire Spirit Stream battlefield. This thing would wait until he entered the Cloud River battlefield in the realm of beasts. It was the first time he came into contact with battle merits in the secret realm. However, in the realm of beasts, the battle merits he obtained, it wasn't too much, only about 30,000. The main reason was that too many people participated in the final battle, so the benefits were it was a profit. After that, the trip to Immortal Essence City obtained 300,000 battle merits. All of them were exchanged for soul water. The trip to the Dragon Soaring Realm obtained 280,000 battle merits. The most recent trip to the Wushuang continent obtained 180,000 battle merits. Adding all of these together, he had so far. The number of battle merits he had obtained was about 800,000. For any Cloud River Realm cultivator or even true Lake Realm cultivator, this was a number that could not be ignored. Take Lishan for example, the number of battle merits he had obtained so far, compared to Lu Yi, his battle merits were only about 300,000 points. Lu Yi, the difference was more than 2 times. The amount of battle merits he obtained was directly determined. It determined the rank and place of a cultivator in the military state guard. With Lu Ye's current capital, his initial rank was impressive. He had already reached the level of a guard. This was unprecedented. One had to know that Lishan was only a guard now. Guard was a higher rank, placed on the front line. If there was an emergency, Lu Yi would have the authority to use his military rank. Then he has to obey orders, even if he has a cultivation base. Even if he was higher than Lu Yi, he couldn't resist. Of course, that was what he said, but if there was no difference between the two, with a direct command relationship, he could also disobey orders. Submit it to the Law Division for arbitration. The Recruitment Division had the ability to determine the initial rank of a new guard, but since the establishment of the Recruitment Division, there had probably not been one. Which new guard had such a high initial rank? Under normal circumstances, a Cloud River 9 like Lu Yi When he entered the military state guard, he was at the level of sergeant and sergeant. No, a very small number of them might be able to reach the level of a guard. How could there be someone like Lu Yi who was a guard? Moreover, looking at the intensity of the color on the battle merit plate, it was still showing signs of transforming to the next level. Above the guard, that was the level of a captain. Only some senior true Lake Realm cultivators could reach that level. It could be said that the matter in front of them, it was within the scope of what he could handle. Lu Shan rubbed his temples and felt a headache coming on. Who would have thought that such a bizarre thing would happen right under his nose? After thinking for a moment, he said, "Louis, please wait for a moment." As he spoke, he raised his hand and tapped on his own battlefield seal. He noted it down and sent out a message. Yes, but not since the establishment of the recruitment department. Which new guard would have such a high starting rank? Under normal circumstances, Yun Hejio, such as Lu Yi, would not be able to defeat Yun Hejio. Those who entered the soldier state guard were all at the level of sergeant or sergeant. No, a very small number of them may reach the level of the fruit guardian. This time, how could there be a guard like Lu Yi? Looking at the intensity of the color on the plate, it was still the same. There were signs of the transformation to the next level. Above Wei Wei was the rank of commandant. Only a few experienced true lake stage cultivators could reach such a level. It could be said that the matter in front of them was beyond them. It was within the scope of what he could handle. Lu Shan rubbed his temples and felt a headache coming on. Who would have thought that such a bizarre thing would happen right under his nose? After thinking for a moment, he said, "Louis, please wait for a moment." As he spoke, he raised his hand and tapped on his battlefield seal. He noted it down and sent out a message. Obviously, he was going to call someone over. While waiting, Lu Shan asked curiously, "What did you do? What did you do? How did you get such a huge amount of battle merits?" Logically speaking, the experience of a cultivator at the Cloud River realm, it was unlikely to have such a huge harvest in a secret realm. Just a little opportunity, Lu Yi replied casually. The few secret realms that he had experienced were not something that others could use. To be able to have such a harvest was both an opportunity and a gamble. Not to mention the Wushuang continent and the Golden Corpse. The king's last battle was in the Dragon Soaring realm. It was a gift from the broken origin of the Dragon Soaring realm. His life force dissipated. As for the immortal Essence City, that was something that no one could touch. Senior brother Lu Shan, can you tell me about the difference in military ranks? Lu Yi asked. When he was in the Blue Blood sect, Shui Yuan had told him a lot about the Immortal Essence Guard. She didn't talk much about military ranks. She probably felt that Lu Yi would soon be able to figure it out. Therefore, Lu Yi didn't know that they could actually check the battle merits that a cultivator had obtained in the past. Confirm the initial military rank. Naturally, there was nothing that couldn't be said. Lu Shan said, since the state guards act as a military, there are different ranks. The military ranks are divided into 9 grades from bottom to top. Soldier, Sergeant, Sergeant, Fruit Guard, Wei Wei, Dui, Guard, Army, Camp Pillar, Commander Flag. The 12 great generals of the military prefecture guard front line, there were 12 commander flags. These 12 commander flags were all at the peak of since they were the commander flags, they were also the 12 commander flags. The Lord of the Pass is stationed outside all year round, protecting the safety of our military prefecture. It's dangerous. The initial military rank of the new guards of the military prefecture is determined. Firstly, it depends on how many battle merits you have obtained in the past. Secondly, it depends on your cultivation level. Low, it mainly depends on your battle merits. The battle merit plate shows that the color corresponds to the military rank, and you will get what you want. Military rank. Of course, there were also times when someone interfered. If a true Lake Realm cultivator newly joined the military prefecture guard, even if he didn't obtain any battle merits before, then at least he would be a squad leader. Because of his cultivation level, there was always a you can't let a true Lake Realm cultivator start as a soldier. It's outrageous. Therefore, Lu Yi didn't know that they could actually check. It was even more important to find out the battle merits a cultivator had obtained in the past. Confirm the initial military rank. Naturally, there was nothing that couldn't be said. Lu Shan said, since the state guards act as a military, there are different ranks. The military ranks are divided into 9 grades from bottom to top. Soldier, sergeant, sergeant, fruit guard, wei, due, guard, army, camp pillar, commander flag. The 12 great generals of the military prefecture guard front line, there were 12 commander flags. These 12 commander flags were all at the peak of the since they were the commander flags, they were also the 12 commander flags. The Lord of the Pass is stationed outside all year round, protecting the safety of our military prefecture. It's dangerous. The initial military rank of the new guards of the military prefecture is determined. First, it depends on how many battle merits you have obtained in the past. Second, it depends on your cultivation level. Low, it mainly depends on your battle merits. The battle merit plate shows it. The color corresponds to the military rank, and you will get what you want. Military rank. Of course, there were also times when someone interfered. If a true Lake Realm cultivator newly joined the military prefecture guards, even if he didn't obtain any battle merits before, he would at least be Aiton's squad leader. Because of his cultivation level, he would always be. You can't let a true Lake Realm cultivator start as a soldier. It's outrageous. Lu Yi suddenly understood. In other words, battle merits determine his military rank is unchangeable, but if his cultivation level is high enough, he can also be promoted at his discretion. That's the reason. Lu Shan had a look of expression on his face. This kind of promotion based on his discretion is not under the control of my recruitment department. That's the official department's matter. Lu Yi nodded. What's the situation on my side? Lu Shan spread out his hands. I haven't met you before. The first soldier's rank is too high, so we can't deal with it. All right, I've already sent a message to Elder Shi. He'll probably take you to the official department. Only there can you promote the fruit guard. Above the military rank. Remember, you have to promote soldiers in the future. If you want a rank, you have to go to the official department. I understand. Lu Yi nodded. While they were talking, a short figure with a long nose. The red-nosed old man suddenly flashed over and scanned him up and down. Lu Yi glanced at him. Is this the kid? Lu Shan and the others hurriedly bowed. Elder Shi. Lu Yi also bowed. Lu Yi of the Jade Blood Sect greets Senior. Although the red-nosed old man was short, it was possible that since Lu Shan and the others were so respectful, he must be at the Divine Sea Realm. He hesitated. Jade Blood Sect. Elder Shi rubbed his chin. He chuckled. It's really strange that there are always some monsters. It's also strange. Follow me. After saying that, he turned around and left. Lu Yi hurriedly followed. After leaving the recruitment department's main hall, Elder Shi immediately soared into the sky. Not only that, he also activated his spirit energy to wrap Lu Yi up. In an instant, Lu Yi experienced what it meant to be truly as fast as lightning. Even if he activated the dual spirit tattoos of flying wings and wind travel, he would still not be able to match this old man's speed even if he used all his strength. He was flying at will. In just about 10 breaths of time, Elder Shi had taken him away. He was brought to a hall. This place was the official department of Haotian City, Lu Shan's side. This was the place to promote soldiers. The official department was undoubtedly more lively than the recruitment department. Many people came and went in the entire hall. There were enough. The qualified soldiers of the Army Province Guards were here to raise their ranks. The hall was spacious, and the layout inside was simple. There were cultivators sitting upright behind the tables, and on each table, there was a battle merit plate placed on each table. The soldiers who had come here to promote their ranks, the state guards, stepped forward in order, handed over their nameplates, and began the battle. The position of the field imprint was placed on the battle merit plate by the official department. The person in charge looked at the color, determined the rank, and changed the nameplate. Appearance. The efficiency was still very high. Elder Shi obviously had no intention of waiting in line. After entering the hall, he walked straight to a small room at the side. He pushed open the door and entered. There was a woman waiting inside. Her gaze swept across the room. Is that him? Elder Shur nodded. That's the kid. Look at him. After saying that, he sat to the side and flipped his hand. He took out an opium pipe and puffed out smoke. The woman glared at him before saying to Lu Yi, "Come and see your battle merits." Lu Yi stepped forward and placed his hand on a battle merit plate. On it, the same scene as in the recruitment department appeared. The color on the battle merit plate continued to change from white to white. It turned green, then blue, then green, and finally stopped at a rich color. Amidst the yellow color. Even though he already knew that this would be the outcome, Elder Shur, he couldn't help but sigh. Killing people at such a young age. Ruma, young people nowadays are amazing. The woman said, there's no problem with the battle merits, but their cultivation is low. There had never been a Cloud River Realm cultivator who could make the battle merits change like this on the plate. What does the official department mean? Elder Shur asked. He said, act according to the rules. What else can we do? The man smiled. Elder Shur nodded slightly. As she spoke, the woman had already taken out a nameplate. His thoughts and spiritual energy surged together, and he did it in this way. Then she threw it to Lu Yi. This is the price of the guard token, and it's also your symbol of status. Keep it close to your body and don't miss it. Lose it. Lu Yi took it. Everyone on the military state guard side had a guard token. Although the battlefield imprint had the ability to record all kinds of information about cultivators, it could, but if a cultivator died in battle, the battlefield imprint would also dissipate. With the guard token, it was different. Sometimes, it could confirm the identity of the dead through the guard token. At the same time, the guard token also had the ability to transmit information. The guard token could mobilize manpower, but the battlefield imprint did not have this convenience. Yes, the communication between the battlefield imprints required 2 cultivators. They could only add imprints to each other. Why are you still standing here foolishly? Seeing that Lu Yi didn't leave, he couldn't help but ask. Where should I go? Go wherever you want, as long as you don't leave Haotian City. Elder Shur waved his hand. When the time comes, you'll know. Someone will inform you where to go. Lu Yi understood and hurriedly left. Chapter 860. The moment of the year after he left, the woman sighed and said, everyone, all these years, they're still staring at the blue blood sect. It's a little too much. She had obviously heard something. Elder Shur said, what can we do about that? That old thing doesn't like worldly affairs and doesn't come to Haotian City to oversee it. Serves his disciples right to be bullied. I'm really going to Heaven's Gate? The woman was hidden. She was a little worried. What are you worrying about? Elder Shur smacked his lips. He took a puff of his pipe. Can Qian Wudong speak up and bring this kid out? Come, haven't you thought about why? The woman's expression changed. You mean, the relationship between Qian Wudong and Fan Xiangyi is something you don't know. It's not like you don't know that Fan Xiangyi and the little girl from the Blue Blood sect are close. The girl was also very close to him. The disciples of the Jade Blood sect had arrived. How could they not take care of him? Previously, they had put this throwing this kid into the prison was their trick. Most likely it was their plan. They wanted to wait for those people to leave before arranging for that kid to go. Unfortunately, he was still targeted. Although they didn't know what they were going to do, that crazy woman wanted to bring him to Heaven's Gate. I'm afraid it won't be that easy. So that's how it is. The woman suddenly understood. You see far ahead. Chapter 864. In the main hall, more than half of the division heads of the 12 passes of the military province had left. The new guards had been divided up, and they had to lead these new guards back to their own passes. There was no point in continuing to stay here. Only 5 or 6 people stayed because of various considerations. The old woman surnamed Yu naturally didn't leave. Her target was Lu Yi, and before the dust settled, she wouldn't leave so easily. This time, she had to bring Lu Yi to Heaven's Gate no matter what. Therefore, even though there were a few people trying to persuade her, it was useless. Instead, it made her irritable and angry. Seeing that she was really angry, those people couldn't say anything more. They all shook their heads and sighed. They also knew that if the boy from the Jade Blood sect was really taken to Heaven's Gate, there was a high probability that he wouldn't have a good ending. Although the military province guards strictly forbade internal strife, from the standpoint of a superior, there were too many open and above-board methods that could be used. If a divine ocean realm cultivator really wanted to deal with a cloud river realm cultivator, the latter wouldn't have any ability to resist. It hasn't been sent yet. The old woman slapped the armrest of the chair angrily, impatient. At this moment, a person hurriedly ran in and reported respectfully, Jade Blood Sect's disciple, Lu Yi, has been registered. As he spoke, he presented a jade slip with both hands. A light flashed in the old woman's eyes. She reached out and grabbed. As she activated her spiritual power, the jade slip was sucked over. The jade slip naturally contained Lu Ye's information. If it fell into the old woman's hands, it meant that Lu Yi had entered Heaven's Gate. Just when the jade slip was only a foot away from the old woman, the expressions of the divine ocean realm cultivators in the main hall changed. Suddenly, a layer of ripples appeared in the void, followed by a sharp flash. The old woman screamed and retracted her hand as if she had been electrocuted. A ghostly figure suddenly appeared, and a fair, jade-like hand caught the jade slip that was flying towards the old woman. With such a sudden change, the divine ocean realm cultivators thought that they had been sneak attacked. They all activated their spiritual power. In an instant, a gust of wind swept through the main hall, and pressure filled the air. The cultivator who sent the jade slip was also at the true lake realm. He wasn't weak, but at this moment he exclaimed and hurriedly retreated. He only felt relieved when he left the main hall. Within the short period of Kunlun chaos, the divine inquisitors were finally able to see the appearance of the person who had suddenly appeared. It was a woman. She looked extremely charming and was born with a heavenly fragrance. There was a mole under the corner of her eye that added a touch of charm. However, her aura was extremely cold, like a stubborn ice that would not melt for 10,000 years. When he appeared, even the divine sea realm cultivators couldn't help but shudder, as if their souls were touched by the cold air. At this moment, the woman was holding a short blade in her right hand and the jade slip containing Lu Ye's information on her left hand as she stared at the old woman. Earlier, it was precisely her who suddenly made a move and intercepted the jade slip halfway. Before she showed up, none of the 5 or 6 spirit sea realm warriors present had noticed her existence. Thought Moon Immortal. The old woman screamed as if she had seen a ghost. Her turbid eyes trembled, clearly not expecting to see this woman at a time like this. But on second thought, she immediately understood why Thought Moon Immortal had appeared here. She'd clearly come for that kid from the Jade Blood sect. So that's why previously, when Gan Wudong spoke to bring that kid from the Jade Blood sect out of the prison, the old woman felt that it was strange. Gan Wudong was too easy to talk to this time. One had to know that Gan Wudong had been in charge of the Wei LV for so many years, and his words had always been like an arrow. So he was waiting for her here. What surprised her even more was that when did Thought Moon Immortal hide here? None of them had noticed. If she hadn't taken the initiative to expose herself, she probably still wouldn't have been noticed. Thought Moon Immortal's attainment in the Tao of concealment was clearly high. The divine sea realm cultivators were all experienced people. The moment they saw the Thought Moon Immortal, they understood the cause and effect. The reason why they stayed behind was to persuade the old woman. In their hearts, they were more or less biased towards the Blue Blood sect. However, their previous efforts were all useless. At this moment, Thought Moon Immortal had appeared and snatched the jade slip, which meant that what they were worried about wouldn't happen again. This made them sigh in relief. If there was anyone in the War Province Guards who didn't put the old woman in their eyes and didn't care whether or not they would offend her, then Thought Moon Immortal was definitely one of them. Not to mention the old woman, even the 12 flags had to give Thought Moon Immortal some face. In terms of strength, Thought Moon Immortal was already qualified to be the Lord of a Pass. However, because she didn't have much ability to command, she couldn't become the Lord of a Pass. Across all of the military province guards, the Thought Moon Immortal was an extremely special person. Her name had even spread to the other 8 provinces, and everyone knew about her. After relaxing, she couldn't help but feel anxious again. The situation became clear, but it also became dangerous. One side wanted to take that kid from the Jade Blood sect to Heaven's Gate, while the other side wanted to stop them. They had even snatched the Jade Slip. Were they going to fight? Didi Pavilion. This was vast Sky City. If two Divine Sea Realm cultivators fought here, what kind of scandal would that be? When the time came, the law department would definitely take action. Perhaps both of them would be locked up in the prison. A chubby old man smiled and said, "Junior Sister Nyen, why are you here?" Thought Moon Immortal said calmly, "I can't come." Her words were like ice. The chubby old man hurriedly said, "Of course not. It's just that I haven't seen you for many years. Junior Sister, you're still as elegant as ever. However, I'm old. Time doesn't spare anyone. You've always been this old." The chubby old man felt a stab in his heart. Even though he knew that Thought Moon Immortal had such a temper, he still felt very uncomfortable and didn't want to say anything. The old woman stared at Thought Moon Immortal and then looked at the jade slip in her hand. "Thought Moon Immortal, give it to me. Whatever conditions you have, just say them. You want it?" Thought Moon Immortal stared at her. "You can try and see if you can snatch it away." Thought Moon Immortal. The old woman gritted her teeth, as if she was about to fly into a rage. However, she still suppressed it. The main reason was that she was weaker than the other party. Even if she got angry, it would be useless. For so many years, you've never wanted a single soldier. Why did you have to interfere today? On a whim, I suddenly want it. That's easy. I'll give you some men. You can have as many as you want, even if it's 100 or 1,000 people. I like those that I snatch. The old woman was furious. Do you have to do this? Thought Moon Immortal's lips curled up slightly. So what? The old woman glared at her, her eyes filled with rage and venom. After a long while, she gritted her teeth. Very well. With that, she stood up and was about to head out. However, at this moment, Thought Moon Immortal's body moved. Wrapped in a fragrant wind, she pounced towards the old woman. No one would have thought that she would really dare to strike at the old woman here. Even the old woman herself had not expected this. After all, she had been lying in ambush here the entire time. If she really wanted to harm the old woman, she could have done so long ago. Yet, she had waited until this moment to strike. Clearly, she did not want to sneak up on the old woman and wanted to attack her openly. The old woman's shriek rang out once more. The clash between the two spirit sea state beings caused the sturdy main hall to collapse. A few figures flew out of the dust and stood in the air. Looking over, everyone's eyes narrowed. In the distance, the old woman's figure was wrapped in a layer of bloody light. She had already escaped. Thought Moon Immortal stood not far away, playing with her dagger in her hand. She looked coldly at the old woman's back and said, 30 years ago, I told you that I would beat you every time I saw you. Did you think I was joking?" When the fat old man and the other spirit sea state beings heard this, they could not help but shudder. Woman. Sure enough, they all held grudges. The old woman held grudges and insisted on bringing that kid from the Jade Blood sect to Heaven's Gate. Thought Moon Immortal held grudges and dared to strike in Grand Heaven City. Although she did not kill the old woman, she still injured her. The huge commotion here naturally alarmed a group of law department cultivators patrolling nearby. They were about to go forward to investigate, but they received some orders and turned around midway and left quickly. The law department was very strict. Since they did not see her and no one reported it, they just treated it as if nothing had happened. When the fat old man and the others saw this scene from afar, they were all speechless. When they looked back, there was no trace of Thought Moon Immortal. She had disappeared without anyone noticing. The fat old man sighed. One person suppressing one person. With Junior Sister Nyen's ability, it's no wonder that the Myriad Demon Ridge did not dare to act rashly. The Ghost Cultivator sect had always been a headache to deal with, especially the powerful ones. When they killed people, no one would be able to detect it. It could be said that sometimes, the existence of a powerful ghost cultivator was a deterrent to the enemy. This was also the reason why Thought Moon Immortal was able to suppress one person. Although there were some twists and turns, in the end, they did not develop in the direction they were worried about. The name list of the Jade Blood Sect disciple fell into the hands of Thought Moon Immortal, and they did not need to worry about anything. When the old woman left, they also left quickly. At this time, outside the official department, Lu Yi was checking his battlefield imprint. The other information in the battlefield imprint did not change much. His location had changed to Grand Heaven City. Only under the information of his battle achievements, there was an additional information. Rank, Wei Wei. Among the 9 ranks, Wei Wei was already at the 5th rank. Moreover, with Lu Ye's current battle achievements, he was not far from the 6th rank. However, for something like a military rank, it was not difficult to increase it in the early stages, but it became more difficult to increase it in the later stages. Lu Yi was very satisfied. No matter what, with this military rank, he could obtain a certain amount of battle achievements every month as the Moon Body. This was the most attractive thing about the military state guard. After checking the battlefield imprint, Lu Yi looked at his Wei Ling. The Wei Ling was not complicated to refine, but because it was supported by Heaven's secrets, ordinary cultivators could not copy it. Moreover, no cultivator dared to copy this thing. Once discovered, they would be hunted down by the entire military state guard. There would be no place for them in the military state. The Wei Ling was a black plate. It was unknown what material it was made of, and there were no special pictures or words. Lu Yi poured his spirit power into it, and the Wei Ling immediately emitted a bright yellow light. He clicked to download the best book-chasing app. Many readers used this to read books aloud. Chapter 865. The bright yellow light corresponded to the Wei Guard's military rank. In this way, when the military province guards of different military ranks met in the wild, as long as they showed their respective guard badges, they could quickly determine the other's military rank. In many emergency situations, it was beneficial to quickly gather and move together. This thing had to be kept close to his body and could not be placed in a storage pouch, because many of the military province guards' orders were given through the guard badges. If it was placed in a storage pouch, they would not be able to communicate. This was the same principle as the sound transmission stone. Just as Lu Yi was about to stuff the guard badge into his bosom, he suddenly sensed something and hurriedly immersed his mind. There was an additional message in the guard badge. The message was very simple. He was ordered to report to the Ash Flame Mountain Pass within 3 days. Lu Yi could not help but frown. This order was somewhat strange, because a new guard like him would usually report to one of the 12 passes first, and then be assigned to a pass under the jurisdiction of the 12 passes. This order for him to directly bypass the pass and report to the Ash Flame Mountain Pass was naturally a bit unusual. However, he did not think too much about it. Now that he had entered the military province guards, there was only one thing he had to do, and that was to follow orders. The order told him to report to the Ash Flame Mountain Pass within 3 days, so he had to arrive within 3 days. If he exceeded the time limit, he would be punished according to military law. Taking out the 10 points map, he found the location of the Ash Flame Mountain Pass. It was not far from Vast Sky City, and with his speed he would be able to arrive in less than a day. Therefore, the 3-day time limit was very ample, and he was not in a hurry to set off. At this time, the sky was already dark, so it would not be too late to rest for a night before setting off. There were many empty rooms in Vast Sky City for the convenience of cultivators coming and going to rest. Moreover, these rooms did not charge any fees. As long as the military province guards cultivators used their guard badges, they could choose any room they wanted. Lu Yi found an empty room nearby and used the guard badge to open the room's restriction, then slowly entered. The room was not big, and the facilities were also extremely simple, enough for one person to rest. After a night of rest, Lu Yi was full of energy. At dawn, he had already set off. Following the 10 points map's guidance, he headed straight for the Ash Flame Mountain Pass. Along the way, he did not encounter any trouble, but he did encounter a few patrolling cultivators. Lu Yi showed the guard badge, so he was able to pass through without obstruction. When night was about to fall, a continuous mountain range in the distance appeared in their field of vision. The surrounding environment seemed to be somewhat hot and dry. This place was the Ashen Flame Mountain. It stretched for thousands of miles, and the Ashen Flame Mountain Pass was located within it. Following the map's guidance, Lu Yi quickly found the exact location of the Ash Flame Mountain Pass. Looking from afar, the huge port looked like a city in the mountains. The city walls were tall, and there were many defensive structures on the city walls. Although the defensive strength was not as strong as that of Vast Sky City, if the Myriad Demons Ridge wanted to attack from here, these defensive structures would be of great use. But what puzzled Lu Yi was that he didn't see anyone on the city wall, and there didn't seem to be any trace of a spirit array covering this city-like entrance. Something was not right. Lu Yi's heart sank. He subconsciously felt that the Myriad Devil Ridge had quietly occupied this place. Otherwise, how could there not be a single person in such a large pass? He hurriedly activated his spiritual power to conceal himself, and put the amber into his spirit beast pouch. Then he quietly moved forward. When he got closer, what he saw made him even more puzzled. There were no traces of battle in the pass, nor was there any smell of blood. Moreover, the buildings seemed to have been in disrepair for a long time. He entered the city and investigated the buildings one by one. He found that many places were covered in dust. This situation undoubtedly showed that no one had lived here for a long time. What was going on in the Ash Flame Mountain Pass? Lu Yi was confused. He couldn't be the only living person here, right? Or were other soldiers and state guards on their way here? Just as he was feeling suspicious, he suddenly had a feeling. When he turned his head to look, he saw a figure standing silently on the roof of a nearby house. The moon hung high in the sky. The cold moonlight shone, making this person look like an immortal. Lu Yi's eyes narrowed. It was because the other party's beautiful eyes were staring straight at him. Even if he maintained his concealment state, it was useless. Fine sweat seeped from his forehead. He tightened his grip on the Pan Mountain saber, but he didn't dare to move. He couldn't tell how strong this person was. To be able to spy on his whereabouts, it was very likely that this person was a divine sea realm cultivator. As for whether this person was friend or foe, it was hard to tell. "What are you sneaking around for?" The woman suddenly spoke. Her voice was as cold as ice, like the cold moonlight shining down from the sky. It shouldn't be an enemy, Lu Yi thought to himself. If it really was an enemy, she could just attack him. If it wasn't an enemy, then it had to be the state guard stationed here. With that thought, Lu Yi removed his concealment state and cupped his fists. He had originally thought that after entering the military prefecture guards and arriving at the front lines, he would have to deal with cultivators from various sects, and then fight against the cultivators of the Myriad Devil Ridge. But now, other than him, there was only one Thought Moon Immortal left in this Ash Flame Mountain. The other military prefecture guards were nowhere to be seen. Was there such a strange Guan Li in the military prefecture guards? Since he had just arrived, there was no point in thinking too much. He had to find a place to stay first. Fortunately, the city here wasn't small, and there were many houses. Although many of them had been in disrepair for a long time, there were still some that could be lived in. Lu Yi casually found a room that looked pretty good. After tidying it up, he came and went. The night passed without a word. The next day, Lu Yi flew to a nearby spirit mountain and looked around, feeling at a loss. Although this place was the front line of the confrontation between the two camps, for some reason, it gave him a very comfortable feeling. All this time, he had been rushing about in the Spirit Stream battlefield, fighting with the Myriad Devil Ridge in a battle of wits and courage. When he arrived at the Cloud River battlefield, it was the same. It could be said that he had always felt a sense of urgency. Now that he had suddenly come to such a comfortable environment, he actually didn't know what to do. After thinking for a while, Lu Yi decided to first find a place to stay. Although people could live in the city, in such a big city, there had been no people for many years. Now that he was the only one living in it, it felt weird. He might as well build his own bamboo building in the nearby Spirit Peak. It wasn't the first time Lu Yi had done something like building a bamboo house, so he was familiar with it. In less than half a day, a 3-story bamboo house had already been built. He also set up many arrays around the bamboo house for defensive purposes. Only then was it considered complete. With a place to stay, it was time to find something to do. Since he had entered the military prefecture guards, he naturally had to work for the military prefecture. Louis tried to contact the Thought Moon Immortal to see if she had any missions. In the end, the other party didn't respond. He didn't know where she went. But speaking of which, for a divine sea realm cultivator like her, if she really wanted to hide her whereabouts, Lu Yi wouldn't be able to find her. Thinking of the other party's attitude, Lu Yi understood that this branch master probably didn't want to bother with him. Since that was the case, he could only cultivate. He wasn't far from the true lake realm, and he had enough golden spirit sticks in his hand. If he hadn't received the transfer order from the city, he should have opened the lake by now. In the end, a cultivator's foundation was their cultivation. When one's cultivation was high, it would be convenient for them to do anything. On the third floor of the bamboo house, Lu Yi sat cross-legged with Yi beside him. Small spirit-gathering funnels formed one after another, and Lu Yi pasted a golden spirit stick in his hand. Rich spirit energy immediately surged out. Lu Yi swallowed it, and the cultivator who had just broken through to the Cloud River Realm 9th Order not long ago. His breakthrough was strengthened. Chapter 866. Lu Yi and Yi were both focused on cultivation, and even Hupo was lying on the side, absorbing the pure spiritual power. 2 people and 1 tiger. No one noticed that a ghostly figure had appeared. At some point, a demon-like figure had floated inside, and was quietly standing 3 meters in front of them. The many warning and protective arrays that Lu Yi had carefully set up seemed to have completely lost their effectiveness. Looking at the current blue flame mountain, only Thought Moon Immortal could sneak in like this without anyone noticing. At this moment, she was sizing up Lu Yi with rapt attention, clearly feeling the terrifying efficiency of Lu Ye's cultivation. With her eyesight, how could she not see the strangeness of Lu Ye's body? Although it was the first time she had seen it, she roughly understood what was going on after a little thought. She was greatly surprised because even with her knowledge and experience, she had never thought that there would be someone in this world who could cultivate like this. Recalling the information she had obtained about Lu Ye's growth, Thought Moon Immortal finally understood why his growth was so fast. This kind of cultivation efficiency was extremely terrifying. The normal breathing of cultivators could not be compared to it at all. This already had nothing to do with cultivation aptitude. From the looks of it, this Cloud River tier brat in front of her was already so powerful when his cultivation was very low, and it had continued until today. How daring and presumptuous. How earth-shattering was his talent in the Tao of spirit patterns to have such a strange idea and put it into action. Spirit Ocean tier cultivators were all people with calm minds, but when Thought Moon Immortal saw Lu Ye's unique cultivation method, she was still shocked. Then she looked at Yi sitting beside Lu Yi. She was even more shocked. The reason she had sneaked in to investigate was because she had sensed that there seemed to be an additional unfamiliar aura in the bamboo building. She had seen Lu Yi before, and Hupo was at Lu Ye's side. She remembered the auras of the human and tiger clearly. Suddenly, there was an additional unfamiliar aura, and she couldn't help but be vigilant. As a result, when she came in to take a look, she found that besides a pet beast at Lu Ye's side, there was another extremely special existence, and this young girl's existence was actually hidden from her. After quietly watching for a moment, Thought Moon Immortal's figure disappeared, as if she had never been here, leaving no trace. 1 golden spirit stick after another was consumed. 7 days later, when the 7th spirit stick's effect was about to end, a loud buzzing sound came from Lu Ye's body. The sound was like thunder, but also like the surging of the Jianghu. The surging spiritual power in his body surged endlessly, causing waves of air to appear in all directions. The feeling of fullness that had developed since the day before was becoming more and more obvious, but under this feeling of fullness, not only did Lu Yi not feel any discomfort, he instead felt that every inch of his body was overflowing with spirit energy. Starting from the spirit stream stage, cultivators would open up many spiritual cavities. When the number of spiritual cavities in their body reached a certain number, they would be able to connect the heavens and form the Cloud River stage. Once they reached the Cloud River stage, The spiritual energy in their body would be like a great river, flowing endlessly. However, the river of spiritual power had its limits. The cultivation of the Cloud River tier was to break through these limits and continuously expand the volume of this river of spiritual power. The river of H of the little Kaqiao expands in volume until this river of spiritual power expands. Zhang stretched to every corner of his body. At this point, every corner of a cultivator's body would be overflowing with their own spiritual energy. There would no longer be any limitations. No matter how they pushed their spiritual energy, they would be able to quickly receive feedback, and their control over their spiritual energy would be far better than before. At this point, a cultivator's body would be filled with spiritual energy like a lake. This was the true lake stage. At this moment, Lu Yi already had 1 foot in the door of the true lake stage. He could basically be considered a true lake stage cultivator. However, the surging spiritual energy in his body was obviously a sign that his realm was unstable. If he let it go, it was possible that he would fall back to the Cloud River 9th order. At that time, all his efforts over the past few days would be in vain. The cultivation of a true lake stage cultivator was different from the previous 2 stages. The previous 2 stages, whether it was the Spirit Stream stage or the Cloud River stage, were all about increasing the volume of one's spiritual energy, especially the Cloud River stage. However, at the True Lake stage, what needed to be increased was the quality of one's spiritual energy. The 9 revolutions True Lake corresponded to the 9 stages of True Lake. Only when Lu Yi truly condensed his spiritual energy would he be able to stand firm in the first order True Lake stage. Right now, he was just a castle in the sky and could collapse at any time. He had previously consulted Shui Yuan about the cultivation of the True Lake stage, so at this critical moment, he was clear about what he should do. If he wanted to condense his spiritual energy, he would need to rely on the secret art he bought from the Heaven's Secret Treasure House when he was in the Spirit Stream stage. Ever since he had entered the Cloud River tier, the spiritual cavities in his body had formed a great cycle, forming a long river of spiritual power. Lu Yi guarded his mind and silently circulated his spiritual energy according to the great sun-colored glass secret arts route. Although his body was now filled with spiritual energy and flooded his spirit cavities, the spirit cavities opened by the Spirit Stream stage still existed. When Lu Yi constructed the small spirit gathering funnel, he also used these spirit cavities as the foundation. At this moment, his spiritual energy was surging, passing through the many spirit cavities. Under the pressure of being full, the surging spiritual energy seemed to undergo some miraculous changes. After a dozen breaths, Lu Ye's mind moved slightly. He could clearly feel that there was a different strand of spiritual energy in his body. That strand of spiritual energy was almost undetectable. In the lake formed by spiritual energy, it was like a piece of floating grass. However, this strand of spiritual energy was extremely special. Compared to other spiritual energy, it undoubtedly contained a much stronger energy. His body continued to emit sounds, but the feeling of being full did not disappear. This was because the golden spiritual stick was still working, and the small spirit gathering funnel was still devouring spiritual energy. From this, one could see the benefits of Lu Ye's unique cultivation method. At this time, most cultivators could only focus on one thing, either condensing their own spiritual energy or absorbing spiritual energy from the outside world to strengthen their body. They couldn't do 2 things at once, because no matter what they did, it would consume a lot of their mind. However, Lu Yi was able to do both, saving a lot of time. As time passed, more and more spiritual energy reached the first revolution in his body, until it could be clearly distinguished, and then completely replaced the original spiritual energy. When all the spiritual energy in his body was replaced with the condensed first revolution spiritual energy, Lu Yi suddenly opened his eyes. In an instant, the entire world seemed to have changed. Lu Yi understood in his heart that it wasn't the world that had changed, but himself. The world was still the same, but he was no longer his original self. The changes brought about by the advancement of a great realm were earth-shattering. It was the same when advancing to the Cloud River realm, and it was the same when advancing to the True Lake realm. Lu Yi could clearly feel the terrifying power contained in his body. Compared to before his advancement, his current strength could be described as skyrocketing. If he was asked to deal with the Golden Corpse King of the Peerless Continent now, Lu Yi felt that he could finish the battle within 3 slashes. Moreover, he didn't know if it was an illusion, but after stabilizing his footing in the First Order True Lake Realm, his physique seemed to have strengthened a little. "Lu Yi, you've reached the True Lake Realm?" Yi asked when she saw him open his eyes. Chapter 867. After a few more days, when all the golden spirit sticks were used up, the bitter cultivation finally came to an end. Lu Yi silently checked his body. Compared to before, there was no change in his realm, but the spiritual energy in his body was undoubtedly more condensed, and his strength had obviously increased by a sliver. This was the uniqueness of the True Lake Realm. In this realm, as long as a cultivator cultivated, his strength would increase more or less. This was something that the previous 2 realms could not compare to. In the previous 2 realms, whether it was Spirit Stream or Cloud River, a cultivator's strength would only increase by leaps and bounds after a breakthrough in his realm. But the True Lake Realm was not like this. In this realm, as the cultivator cultivated, the increase in strength was continuous and stable. The moment he opened his eyes, Lu Yi suddenly exploded, raising his hand to press the hilt of the Panshan saber at his waist. His body arched slightly, like a cheetah about to pounce on its prey, and his spiritual energy burst forth. This was because a figure was quietly standing 10 feet in front of him. But very quickly he reacted. The person standing in front of him was not just anyone, but his immediate superior, the Pass Lord of Ash Flame Mountain Pass, Thought Moon Immortal. He could not help but break out in cold sweat, secretly horrified. Was this the ability of a divine sea realm cultivator? Before he opened his eyes and saw her, he actually did not know when she was standing there, nor did he detect any of her aura. The many arrays that he set up were completely useless. When did she come? The secret of his cultivation and Yi's existence, did she not see clearly? But on second thought, whether it was the secret of his cultivation or Yi's existence, it was not a big deal. The former was at most a special little trick in his cultivation. There was nothing to hide. Even if he told others, they would not be able to imitate it. As for Yi, Jade Blood Sect had records of Yi, and Yi was a disciple of the Jade Blood Sect. If Thought Moon Immortal had doubts, she could verify it with the sect. Moreover, if he lived here for a long time in the future, under the eyes of a divine sea realm cultivator, these things would be exposed sooner or later. Thinking of this, Lu Yi relaxed, letting go of the saber hilt, and raised his hand to cup his fist. "Lord!" Thought Moon Immortal said lightly, "Your array skills are not bad. This bamboo house is not bad either." "Lord, you flatter me." Lu Yi thought to himself, no matter how good my attainments in the array Dao are, you still manage to sneak in without me noticing. Thinking about it this way, wouldn't this Mountain Pass Master's attainments in Array Dao be world-shaking? She was a ghost cultivator? Lu Yi was a little slow to react. Lu Yi naturally didn't know what sect the Thought Moon Immortal belonged to, but judging from the clues in front of him, it was very likely that she was a ghost cultivator. Even a ghost cultivator like Ying Wuji could intimidate cultivators in the same realm, not to mention a ghost cultivator in the Spirit Sea realm. Lu Yi couldn't imagine how powerful a ghost cultivator like this could be. "Milord, is there anything else?" Lu Yi saw her staring at him coldly and felt a little pressured. The Thought Moon Immortal didn't speak any further. Her figure swayed slightly before she vanished. Lu Yi didn't even see how she left. Inside the bamboo house, Lu Yi was confused. "What do you mean? Why would the Mountain Pass Master come all the way here just to praise him?" It didn't make sense. He tugged at Lu Ye's clothes from the side. "Lu Yi, does she want this bamboo house?" A woman's thoughts were undoubtedly more meticulous. Lu Yi was confused by the Thought Moon Immortal's actions, but Yi vaguely saw something. "Impossible." Lu Yi flatly denied it. "If she wants it, she can just build one herself. Why would she want to steal mine?" With her abilities as a Spirit Sea realm cultivator, she could easily build a 3-story bamboo house. "That's true." He nodded, thinking that she might be overthinking it. But the Thought Moon Immortal's words clearly had a hidden meaning. There was no point in thinking too much. After cultivating for so many days, it was unavoidably boring. Let's go out for a walk, Lu Yi said and brought Hu Perini out the door. At a glance, he saw the Thought Moon Immortal sitting on the trunk of a large tree outside. Her back was leaning against the tree, her gaze was distant as she gazed into the distance. No one knew what she was thinking. Lu Yi raised his eyebrows, not sure why she was at his side. Or was it that this was originally her resting place, and he just happened to build a bamboo house here? Taking a few steps forward and looking up, Lu Yi called out, "Milord, do you have an order?" In his imagination, when he reached the front line of the military prefecture guard, he would have to fight a battle of wits and courage with the cultivators of the myriad Devil Ridge. But the environment here seemed to be a bit too comfortable. There was only him and the Thought Moon Immortal at the Ruin Pass, and there were no signs of myriad Devil Ridge cultivators coming to attack or infiltrate. The Thought Moon Immortal gave him the position of a guard, but he couldn't really stay here forever. As a military prefecture guard, he couldn't act on his own without orders. This made things a bit difficult. "You want a mission?" The Thought Moon Immortal slowly came back to her senses and looked down. "If there is one." The Thought Moon Immortal nodded. With a flip of her jade hand, the guard token appeared. She didn't seem to do anything, but Lu Yi immediately sensed something. He hurriedly grabbed his own guard token and immersed his mind to investigate it. A moment later, he looked at the Thought Moon Immortal with a speechless expression. The missions of the military prefecture guard were transmitted verbally by the higher-ups, and also through the guard token. The Thought Moon Immortal's action just now was obviously to give him a mission through the guard token. The content of the mission was also very complicated. Find a place for the Mountain Pass Master. Seeing the content of the mission, the corner of Yunhe's eyes couldn't help but twitch. He had hit the nail on the head. But if you want it, just say it. If you don't say it, how will I know? Besides, you're a great cultivator of the Blue Flame Mountain. Is it difficult to build a bamboo house? Before I came, where did you stay? You can't have been living in the open for so many years. Thinking about it, there was really such a possibility. He had checked the city of the myriad Devil Ridge. There were no signs of people living there, and it had been many years since anyone lived there. Lu Yi also didn't have any buildings in the distance. In other words, during the days when the Thought Moon Immortal guarded the myriad Devil Ridge alone, she didn't have a fixed residence. Yunhe had a belly full of curses with nowhere to vent. At the same time, he was angry and amused. "Sir, if you don't mind, the bamboo house behind me has just been built." Before she finished speaking, the Thought Moon Immortal had already flashed into the third floor of the bamboo house. In the next moment, the praying mat that Li Yuan had left inside was thrown out and caught by him. His eyelids twitched even more. Burning the bridge after crossing the river was a bit too much. Yunhe had never thought that his Mountain Pass Master was such a great cultivator of the Blue Flame Mountain. However, he quickly sensed something and hurriedly lowered his head to check his battlefield imprint. His belly full of complaints instantly disappeared without a trace. There was no other reason. In the battlefield imprint, there was a change in the battle merit information. Originally, after buying the Golden Spirit lot from the War Merit Pavilion, he had kept 4,672 battle merit points. Now, it had become 42,672 battle merit points. In other words, he had an extra 2,000 battle merit points. There was such a good thing? Yunhe was extremely surprised. He knew that one could obtain battle merit points in the military state guards. This was also the most attractive aspect of the military state guards. Moreover, there were many more ways to obtain battle merit than cultivators in the Spirit Peak battlefield. The monthly salary was one thing, killing enemies was another, and carrying out missions was another. These were all things that the Spirit Peak battlefield did not have. However, in his opinion, the so-called carrying out missions was definitely related to the confrontation between the two factions. Was it okay to offer a bamboo house to his Mountain Pass Master? This was somewhat bizarre. From the looks of it, as long as one completed the mission given by the peak, no matter what the mission was, one could obtain battle merit points. It had nothing to do with fighting against Li Yuan cultivators. Although 2,000 battle merit points were not much, it was not easy to build a bamboo house. No matter how one looked at it, it was a good deal. Sir, the bamboo house is too small for your status. Do you need this subordinate to build a bigger residence for you? Yunhee asked loudly. Dee looked at him in surprise, as if she was looking at a bootlicker. There was no response. Yunhee sighed, feeling that it was a pity. However, there was nothing he could do. Since the bamboo house had been offered, he could only build another one. Fortunately, this matter was not troublesome. As for the location, Yunhee did not want to live on the same mountain as Thought Moon Immortal. After all, she was a major cultivator of Li Yuan. Living on the same mountain as her would be a little stressful. Hence, he found another piece of land far away. Together with Yi, they spent some time to build a new bamboo house. Just as they were done here, there was movement from Wei Ling. Evidently, there was another mission. Yunhee hurriedly checked and found out that the mission this time was for him to hunt some wild animals in the mountains and cook some food. This was the right thing to do. There were still many wild animals in Wanimo Ridge. There were even traces of demonic beasts. With his true lake stage strength, it was naturally easy for him to capture them. He flashed out and soon he had a harvest. Carrying the prey, he went to the piece of land where Thought Moon Immortal was and started a fire below the bamboo house. It was not that he wanted to show off, but the mission clearly stated that he was required to cook here. He peeled off the skin and cleaned the flesh. First, he threw half of the fresh meat to Hupe and roasted the other half over the fire. Li Yuan had done this many times. Naturally, she was familiar with it. As for the culinary skills, she could only say that it was not bad. After an hour, the aroma of the meat filled the air. Just as Yunhee was about to tear off the fattest part and send it to Thought Moon Immortal, a figure flashed in front of him. Thought Moon Immortal ran out herself. Dee rolled her eyes and hurriedly stood up. She moved the stool she was sitting on to behind Thought Moon Immortal and called out sweetly, "Sister, have a seat." Thought Moon Immortal looked at her strangely but did not say anything. She sat down leisurely. Yi gave Yunhee a look. Yunhee hurriedly handed over the cooked meat he had prepared. "My lord, please enjoy." Thought Moon Immortal nodded slightly. She raised her hand to receive it and ate slowly. It was not that it tasted bad. In any case, she ate everything that Yunhee gave her. She did not even spit out the bones. Yunhee and Yi were both stunned. Chapter 868. Since that day, Thought Moon Immortal would occasionally give Lu Yi missions through Wei Ling. They were all trivial matters, mostly related to eating and drinking. There was even one mission that asked him to go to a nearby mountain pass to buy a special kind of wine. Every time he completed a mission, he would gain merit points, ranging from a few hundred to 2,000. In just a few days, Lu Yi had gained close to 10,000 merit points. The harvest was not bad, but Lu Yi felt that something was not right. Things should not be developing like this. On this day, Lu Yi was still cooking at Thought Moon Immortal's spiritual peak. He was roasting beast meat on the fire, boiling hot soup in the pot, and there were a few jars of wine on the table, waiting for Thought Moon Immortal's arrival. Generally speaking, she would only show up when Lu Yi was ready. Suddenly, the smell of a burnt lake came. Dee turned her head and exclaimed, "Lu Yi, the lake is roasted." She quickly went forward and snatched the roasted meat from his hand, trying to salvage the situation. When she turned her head again, she saw Lu Yi frowning and sitting there with a bitter expression. "What's wrong?" Yi did not understand, not knowing what Lu Yi was worried about. "Something's wrong." Lu Yi shook his head. "What's wrong? It shouldn't be like this." He entered the military state guards to guard the front line, not to be a servant here. Although there were orders from above and no one disobeyed, what was he doing these days? He suddenly stood up and kicked over the soup pot in front of him. In Yi's exclamation, he flipped over the table, and the wine he bought from the nearby mountain pass also fell to the ground. He looked up at the bamboo house not far away and cupped his fist. "Lord, subordinate has something to say." On the third floor of the bamboo house, a beautiful figure appeared. Thought Moon Immortal floated down. Looking at the mess on the ground, she said, "Speak." Lord, this subordinate requests Lord to give me some proper missions. Please don't let this subordinate do these miscellaneous tasks. The previous missions were not proper? Proper or not, don't you know? Lu Yi had a stomach full of depression, but he had nowhere to vent. Although merit points were good things, it did not come from this. If this continued, he would be crippled. Sir, this is the Tsangyen Mountain Pass. You and I are both military prefecture guards and should take care of our duties. We shouldn't be idle like this. Nian Yuxian, who was originally on the third floor, suddenly appeared in front of him. She was only a foot away from him, and her gaze became sharp. Am I very old? That's what I said, but that's not what I meant. Sir, there's no need to harp on the word tenancy. Lu Yi couldn't help but take 2 steps back. Nian Yu Immortal just stared at him quietly, making Lu Ye's hair stand on end. After a while, she said, I understand. Lu Yi exhaled deeply and said in a deep voice, if that's the case, I want to drink fish soup. Fish soup made from blood-red scales. I haven't had it in years. Lu Yi suddenly didn't know how to respond, and how did she know about the blood-red scales? This should be a product of the Moon Lake of the Jade Blood sect, or had she tasted it somewhere else? Within 5 days, I want to drink fresh, blood-red fish soup. Thought Moon Immortal said. My lord, what I said just now, you want to disobey? Thought Moon Immortal's tone was unhurried. Their eyes met, and after a long while, Lu Yi gritted his teeth and said word by word, this subordinate obeys. As he said this, he waved his hand. Hoopa jumped up and was about to land on his shoulder, but he was sucked in by a force in midair. When he came back to his senses, he was already in Thought Moon Immortal's arms. Her slender, jade-like hand stroked Hoopa's fur like a kitten. Master, save me. Hoopa glared at the 2 tiger cubs, conveying his wish to Lu Yi. Lu Yi raised his hand and pressed down on the hilt of his saber, looking coldly at Thought Moon Immortal. The 2 of them stay with me. You go alone. Thought Moon Immortal didn't seem to notice his hostility. She turned around and threw her back to him, looking completely unguarded. Don't worry, I won't eat it. It would have been better if she hadn't said this. As soon as she said this, Hooper immediately trembled. He stepped forward and grabbed Lu Ye's arm, shaking her head. Don't be impulsive. Go quickly and come back quickly. She doesn't mean any harm. The main thing was that he couldn't beat her. Her cultivation was at the divine ocean realm. Even if she really didn't guard against Lu Yi couldn't possibly be her opponent. Moreover, in the military province guards, offending one's superior was a great taboo. Please take good care of the 2 of them, sir. The 2 of them are this subordinate's beloved friends. After Lu Yi finished speaking, he soared into the sky. Fiery red spiritual energy flowed behind his back, transforming into a pair of wings, and he quickly flew away. Beloved friends, Thought Moon Immortal's figure paused. The corners of her mouth curled up slightly, and she raised her hand to tap Hoopa's nose. Seeing her reveal such an expression, Hoopa panicked even more. His eyes rolled back, and he directly fainted. Thought Moon Immortal pinched his neck, saying softly, if you don't wake up, then I'm going to cook a pot of tiger bone soup. Hooper immediately opened his eyes, full of energy, indicating that he was just taking a short nap. He never would have thought that after entering the military province guards, he wouldn't even see a single cultivator from the myriad Devil Ridge, and would actually have to return to his sect first. After these few days of contact, Lu Yi found that Thought Moon Immortal was more or less unreliable. He didn't know why he was so unlucky to be assigned to be her subordinate. Moreover, he was the only one assigned to the Vicissitude Flame Mountain Pass. What exactly was going on over at Grand Sky City? However, the allocation of soldiers was decided by the higher-ups, and Lu Yi couldn't do anything about it. The journey to the Jade Blood sect was not short, and Thought Moon Immortal only gave him 5 days. In other words, he had to rush back to his sect within 2.5 days. The mission had already been issued through the guard token. If he missed the deadline, not to mention not being able to complete the mission, Thought Moon Immortal would very likely make things difficult for him. Lu Yi suspected that she was using this method to force him to leave the Vicissitude Flame Mountain Pass. Before his arrival, she had always been alone. His arrival might have broken the peace of her life, causing her to feel a little uncomfortable. Therefore, she kept ordering him around and giving him some trivial missions. Otherwise, how could a spirit ocean realm cultivator like her have so much appetite for food? She even asked him to go to the nearby mountain pass to buy some special wine. Lu Yi also didn't see any signs of her drinking. Time was of the essence, and he sped along. What made Lu Yi feel slightly relieved was that after his cultivation broke through to the true lake realm, his speed had greatly increased. There was enough time to rush back and forth in 5 days. If it was before his breakthrough, this mission might have really failed. He traveled through the night, and only occasionally stopped to recover his strength before continuing on his journey. After a full 2 days, he finally arrived at the fragrant mountain. He didn't guard the front, and went straight to the moon lake. From afar, he saw Shui Yuan's figure waiting there. Lu Yi had already informed Shui Yuan on the way, so his second senior sister knew that he was going to rush back. However, there was another figure beside Shui Yuan. When he got closer, he knew that it was Pang Huanin. She had returned from the Wushuang continent. His figure flashed like lightning and landed in front of the two. "Senior brother Lu." Pang Huanin greeted with a smile. "Palace Master Pang," Lu Yi replied and looked at Shui Yuan. "Second senior sister, I'll catch some fish first. We'll talk later." Saying so, he flashed into the moon lake and shuttled back and forth. A moment later, he rushed out again. His body was protected by spirit energy, so he didn't get wet at all. "Congratulations, senior brother, for breaking through to the true lake realm." Pang Huanin congratulated. The spirit energy fluctuations emitted by Lu Yi made her understand that he had broken through from the 8th order cloud river realm to the true lake realm in such a short period of time. She couldn't help but feel envious and amazed at how convenient it was for the cultivators of the 9 regions to cultivate. "Palace Master Pang, you're not far from the true lake realm." Lu Yi nodded. Pang Huanin was originally at the peak of the Cloud River realm. Due to the environment of the Wushuang continent, she couldn't break through to the true lake realm. Now that she was in the 9 regions, the true lake realm was not the end of her cultivation. She would definitely reach the spirit ocean realm in the future. It was just that she had been busy with worldly affairs recently, so she didn't have time to cultivate in seclusion. Many people from the Ziwei Dao Palace had come to Fragrant Mountain with the help of the Blue Blood Sect's Heaven's Fate Pillar. They were building the sect and the foundation of the sect on the 30 peaks that Pang Huanin had marked out. After everything was done, the Ziwei Dao Palace could establish a sect in the 9 regions. At that time, they would announce to the military province that the Blue Blood Sect was the upper sect. The news had already spread, which shocked many sects in the military province because there were many sects more powerful than the Blue Blood Sect in the military province. Many people didn't understand why the Ziwei Dao Palace chose the Blue Blood Sect as their upper sect. Only a few people who knew the reason behind Pang Huanin's decision. This was a joyous occasion for the Blue Blood Sect, so no one was interfering. "Second senior sister, do you know Thought Moon Immortal?" Lu Yi looked at Shui Yuan again. Previously, when she was communicating with Shui Yuan, Lu Yi had mentioned the reason for her return. Naturally, she had also mentioned the missing Moon Immortal. She had also complained a lot about the missing Moon Immortal. Shui Yuan didn't reply much and only told him to wait until they met. However, from Shui Yuan's words, she seemed to know Thought Moon Immortal. "I know her. Logically speaking, I should call her senior sister." Shui Yuan nodded. Lu Yi couldn't help but be surprised. She also came from our Blue Blood Sect? But then again, Yi was right when she called Thought Moon Immortal sister. On the contrary, it was wrong for him to call her senior. "Of course not." Shui Yuan laughed. "She has never joined any sect. Strictly speaking, she is a loose cultivator." "A loose cultivator?" Lu Yi exclaimed. He more or less knew how harsh the environment was for loose cultivators to grow up in. On the path of cultivation, loose cultivators needed to put in much more effort than sect disciples. For a loose cultivator to cultivate to the Divine Sea realm, it was impossible to imagine how many hardships she had experienced on the path of cultivation. Just from this point alone, Lu Yi was filled with admiration. Does she have a grudge with our blue blood sect? No. Then why is she tormenting me like that? Initially, Lu Yi didn't realize what was going on. He only saw that he had completed the mission and obtained battle merits and was rather happy. However, after interacting with her for a few days, Lu Yi finally saw some clues. The thought Moon Immortal was tormenting him. Otherwise, why would she give him those missions when he was at the True Lake stage? Mobile users, please browse. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.